Hello, dear viewers. Support me by subscribing to my channel and share my video if you like it. And also, make sure you comment your thoughts. Now let's start the video. Jon Stark is dead. A fair, beautiful face framed by flame-kissed hair and errant snowflakes falling from the sky furrowed her brows. What? She didn't seem to hear what her brother said. Bran Stark used to feel a massive jolt each time he emerged from the sight. A painful thud into the ground that reminded the boy of the moment in which the Lion of House Lannister pushed him out the window. The physical was dwarfed by the emotional agony, remembering the most traumatic moment of his life. The figure that emerged from the power of the weirwood felt nothing. If anything, the life within, seeing everything that has happened and was happening, was preferable to the world from the eyes of a crippled boy. Preferable to have to deal with the annoying kin that this vessel seemed to inhabit. At least the previous vessel was a mighty warrior from the line of the dragon. Everything here was simply mundane. But the confused expression on the face of Sansa Stark did provide a certain sort of enjoyment. Rosie, don't stay silent. What are you trying to say? Your brother is dead, he said suddenly. We saw the whole thing. Stabbed in the back, stabbed in the stomach, and stabbed in the heart. He didn't die that quickly, Bran explained slowly, zero inflection in his voice. He died an hour ago. Sansa needed support, falling against one of the trees. Her breathing became panicked. How? How do you know all this? We told you. Saw it? Sansa finished for him, voice trembling from grief. I'm sorry, but that doesn't make any sense to me. Explain yourself. Please. Our eyes are everywhere. We knew what was happening. We were inside Dragonstone. Saw everything. What happened to him? She choked out. Sansa didn't cry. Not anymore. Ramsay enjoyed crying, so she made sure not to. But even she couldn't help the tears that welled in her eyes. Stabbed in the back, he commented without a hint of emotion. Stabbed in the stomach and stabbed in the heart. I know who killed Jon. A man named Daario Naharis. Who's that? You know nothing of the man. He's a sellsword, the one that Brienne of Tarth dealt with at White Harbor, Daenerys Targaryen's lover, that had the intended reaction in Sansa's anger. However, Theon Greyjoy was there. Sansa gasped. The nun? Yes, he tried mightily to save your brother, but he failed miserably, Bran told her. It was no use. You see, your brother was going to die either way. Sansa exhaled. He's your brother too. He's not. We have no brothers or sisters. Jon Stark is Brandon's brother, as you are his sister. The acting lady of Winterfell breathed hard, gathering herself. She stared at Bran with a hint of anger. I don't know who I see. I don't know who you are. Can I even believe what you say? Believe what you wish, but we have told you the truth, said Bran in response. The Dragon Queen likely won't let word leave the castle. She won't want the North to know that their lord died under her roof. Yet, she cannot account for us. We've seen it all before. Unable to further speak, Sansa pushed herself off the tree. Her eyes locked on Bran intensely, but her mind was so full of concern for Jon, she couldn't muster an argument with Bran. Talking with him now only confused and infuriated her. Nothing he said ever made sense to her. Only as she left, her back to Bran, did the tears begin to flow. Unable to stop pacing, Dany needed somewhere to put all her pent-up anger. Jon had died right under her nose. There was nothing she could do about it now. There was nothing left but fury. No one had any idea what had happened. Their only witness, Theon Greyjoy, was in critical condition, beaten to an inch of his life and knocked out, leaving her people searching for answers. She gathered her top advisors around the painted table, waiting for any ideas. Someone better start talking, she said. Your Grace, Barristan said gently. Perhaps you should retire to your quarters, get some sleep. No, she stated firmly. Tyrion sighed. No good decisions were made by angered rulers. Halting for a moment, she stared daggers at Tyrion. No, I think the problems occurred here when I wasn't being angry or emotional enough. Stuffing away my feelings, letting the last time I would ever see Jon Stark, and so, Daenerys resumed her pacing at the head of the painted table. She loved Jon Stark, but would never get to tell him, all because of the idiotic desire to spare herself pain, and yet the pain is worse now. Please, Your Grace, Missandei urged, her eyes wide with concern and empathy. At least change your dress. Glancing down, Dany noticed the white fabric stained with dried blood. Jon's blood. The blood of her late love. Something told her she should be disgusted with it. Petrified of it. But Daenerys wasn't. I want them all to see. I want the person responsible to see just how this act has affected me. Looking at each other, the three senior advisors understood her state. The dragon had awoken, masking the greatest grief with fire and blood. Not shocking, and it would keep her going through this. But eventually she would fall hard. They would have to prepare for it. Someone better give me some semblance of answers, Dainty told the room once Grey Worm arrived, having personally seen to the new guard stations. How did this happen? We're not sure, Barristan sighed. I had been assured Jon was in his quarters. It seems someone sent Theon to get him. The guards didn't think anything of it. I don't blame them. Don't blame them, Dany nearly roared. They allowed my most valued prisoner to leave their quarters after dark. Grey Worm stepped forward then. I'm sorry, my queen. This is my fault. The guards weren't well informed enough, Missandei added. They saw Theon as your counselor and figured it was all right. She sighed. It was a mistake, yes, but there's nothing we can do about that now. What is Theon Greyjoy's condition? Tyrion asked. Will he live? He's the only one who can give us answers. The healers are tending to him. I made sure of it. But at this time we don't know if he'll live, Missandei sighed again. Pursing her lips. Who could have done this? Dany shook her head, breathing heavily. Cersei? What reason would my sister have to kill a lord from the north who she's never even met? Jon Stark means nothing to her. Once one of Stannis' close advisors, but Stannis himself matters more now, although I could understand Randyll Tarly or perhaps Littlefinger. She has no reason to kill Jon, Tyrion replied. Wishing he had a glass of wine right now, he shook his head. I doubt this was an outside assassin. This bears the hallmark of treason. Missandei pinched her chin in frustration. Who among us would do such a thing? I don't wish to speak ill, Barristan pointed out. But I think perhaps Varys. Tyrion held up a hand. I'm sorry, but why would we think Lord Varys set this up? While a brilliant strategist in combat and a wise man, the former Kingsguard wasn't the best at reading deception or duplicitous intent. The knight crossed his arms. He tried to poison her. Grace Beforen was behind the effort to get Jorah Mormont banished. I wouldn't put it past him to still have such ties to the Baratheons or Lannisters. Varys decided to stand up for himself. I'm loyal to our queen now and forever. I would never act against her. The threat of Dragonfire is good enough deterrence for me. I don't believe Lord Varys was behind this, Your Grace, Missandei added her voice to the noise. He has no good reason to. I agree, Tyrion shrugged, thinking it completely obvious. Knowing that, who had a good reason? Not a soul had answers. Moments later, the council meeting opened up into a loud discussion. Barristan went on about suspecting Varys, while Tyrion defended his friend. Dany closed her eyes, shaking her head, trying to make sure this wasn't one of her dreams. The White Wolf had needed help, and she was nowhere to be seen. There was no doubt as to her mind what the dreams were. I am such a fool. In the back of the room, near the door, Dario slid in. He thought it'd be a better idea to wait for his entrance. He leaned against the wall, intending for the noise to die down before saying anything. But no one had even noticed him coming in. Oh, fuck it. With all the arguing, it was giving him a headache. Abruptly, he stepped up and raised his voice. It was me. I did it. I killed Jon Stark. Everything in the room stopped. Faces found him with shock. Even the stoic Lord Varys, growing wide-eyed, Dany, however, got over it quickly. Glaring at him. You.
Yes.
He was nonchalant, even proud. I tricked the Kraken into getting him for me. Poor fool, I had to beat the boy because he wouldn't stay down. Regrettable, but he'll live. Your allies have nothing to fear from me. You killed Jon, Tyrion gasped, eyes widening. Dario rolled his eyes. Yes, how many times do I have to say it? Hands shaking, Barristan couldn't believe what he heard. Do you not realize what you've done? He brought a fist down on the table, and the bastard didn't even hide it. He was a hostage. A shrug. Am I supposed to care? The entire North will come after us now. The North, he laughed. I've been there. It's nothing but an icebox. Let them freeze and starve. They have no use for her. Grace. You're a murderer, hissed Missandei. I prefer the term bold or genius works better. I'll take that. Grinning, it fell slightly, noticing not even Grey Worm, who was never partial to Jon Stark, siding with him. None of you would do what needed to be done, so I did it. And I'd do it again, too. I probably will once the conquest of the North begins. He was serious about what he'd do to pretty little Sansa Stark with Jon's blade. Only one person's opinion truly mattered here, and she wasn't having it. Seasoned, Dane said, coldly. What? Daario scoffed. Then Grey Worm appeared behind him and grabbed his arms, twisting them together. What is this? Dane slowly walked over to him, face a mask, but eyes saying everything. You're confused? Let me explain. You murdered my most valuable prisoner in cold blood. For what? Jealousy? Petty vengeance? It doesn't matter. You've committed treason. Treason? I did it for you. For me? Dany shook her head, approaching him. This was the last thing I'd ever want. You've made a grave mistake. Grunting, Daario wrestled free of Grey Worm's grip. He got close to Daenerys. A mistake? I did you a favor. He was poisoning you, distracting you from the throne, turning you away from the fire in your blood. The utter lack of warmth in her gaze unnerved him. You should be thanking me. Reward me, even. The queen was unmoving as he yelled. Two more Unsullied came over to contain Daario. You are a weak man, Daario. You will pay dearly for this trespass against me. At that, Daario fought against the hold of the Unsullied, struggling to break free, to grab Darius by the shoulders and shake sense into her. None of these other cunts was man enough to kill that fucker, he hissed. To do what had to be done, Grey Worm's grip tight, Daenerys slowly approached her former lover and current prisoner. Her violet eyes were dark and piercing as they regarded him for who he really was. Faces only inches apart, even given her slight frame. It seemed as if he was facing a dragon. She noticed the missing piece of flesh on his face. I see Jon left something for you to remember him by. Too bad it won't matter what you remember soon. He was more a man than you will ever be. Daario, I can't believe this, Daario howled. How could you do this to me? Well, you really are that confused. Tyrion laughed a bit. Clouded by your hatred for him, I suppose. Or perhaps your ego. I suspect you hating him was merely an added treat for you. What a snake, Barristan scowled, hand going to his trusty blade. My queen, please allow me to dispatch this swine myself. No, Dany replied quickly. He will burn. His eyes widened like saucers. Take him to the dungeons, for now. Don't feed him. Her lips curled into a rather devious smirk. Put him in the same cell Jon Stark was first in. I believe it was the one that leaked during storms. The cell that brought agony knowing the man she loved had been in would serve well for the man that killed him. A look of total disbelief on Daario's face as the Unsullied dragged him away. Daenerys, don't do this, he continued to yell long after they pulled him out of the room. As soon as the door shut, Missandei rushed over to Daenerys, pulling her into a hug. I'm so sorry, my queen. Of those close to her, she was the only one that could give Dany even the semblance of personal comfort. There was one other, but his blood coated her dress, the queen never to know his touch. I can't believe... I believe it, Missy, she murmured. I never truly saw it, but I believe it. A man without honor, without restraint. She squeezed Missandei, once before pulling out of the embrace. This was the same Daario that held a knife to your throat and placed the heads of his captains on my rug. He was dazzled with me, and everything was on the table to satiate his obsession. Your Grace, Barristan said, looking sad. I wish there was something I could do. She barely heard him. I can't believe I let him in my bed. Daenerys clenched her fist, biting her lip. The man so besotted and obsessed that he would betray her in the vilest of ways, in her name, had indulged in her body, but the honorable, kind man that she had only realized too late that she loved, only a knife in the back. Dany truly felt disgusted with herself. Varys, you will need to make sure word of this doesn't leave the castle. Tyrion said, I can take care of it. Good. We need to do what we can to make sure outrage from the north comes at a time when we are ready at the very least. There's nothing we can do, Dany huffed. There's nothing I can do, no matter how grain I send, no measure of servitude I deliver. The north will never kneel for me, not after this. Perhaps there is a way to deliver them a half-truth, so they may be more agreeable, Varys offered. No, I owe them the truth. At the very least, it cannot be hidden forever, Dane said. However, this is a very inopportune time. For now, no one can know. I do know that the Starks like to bury the remains of their dead in the crypts under Winterfell, Tyrion pointed out. Only right his body be returned to his home. It will be done, Dane said. I'll make sure of it. I owe him that. What will we do then? When we tell them, the North, Missandei asked no one in particular. This is a mess, regardless of us not informing the North right away. When they find out, they will revolt. They may never enter the fold, Tyrion sighed. The only way this ends is them left to their own devices or raised keeps. The North has no army, said Varys. It's not if a revolt would be entirely threatening. I don't want to have to burn anyone else. Dany tilted her head, eyes wandering away. Aside from those who deserve it. If it comes to it, the North won't come to heel. I've taken enough from them. If they won't come to the table, I won't force them. Are you saying you'd allow them to be independent? I don't know, Dany lowered her gaze, looking no one in the eyes. She didn't wish the people Jon ruled to be run by a tyrant, but the North may have suffered enough. While true, would it be wise to allow them to do whatever they want? Barristan asked her honestly. They do have no army to fight us. I don't think they'd be dumb to try something foolish. Tyrion stroked his beard. Raising one eyebrow, he allowed the thought to marinate. If our queen truly wished this, I believe it could be done. At the very least, the same concessions Daeron II gave Dorne. Autonomy would be more apt, considering how remote the North is. This is a topic for a later time, Missandei said. We have other matters to attend to. Dario. First off, Barristan began. Are we certain as to what to do with him? The Queen's answer came only a split second later. Yes, abundantly, Dany hissed. Though I can't decide if it'd be more enjoyable to watch Drogon shoot him up or roast him alive. I sense there would be no point convincing you otherwise. No. I see. Do you suggest there is another option? Dany raised her eyebrows expectantly. I don't see another option. Barristan sighed. I'm not for burning any of our people at... He is not one of us anymore. Tyrion huffed, fidgeting a bit. Perhaps banish him? No, that might have been possible had I had more sense when he heard Jon the first time, disobeying my orders, but he went too far. He deserves to burn. It wouldn't bring Jon back, but Dany didn't care. She couldn't protect him, but she'd at least avenge him. Pulling himself difficultly into a chair, Tyrion leaned back and wished to be drunk. You know, old friend, he said to Varys, some here suspected it was you that pulled this off. Ruddy eyes casting his way, the eunuch tucked his lips in. Varys spoke with a chuckle. Surely the small council gives me more credit than that, Lord Tyrion. If I did seek Lord Stark's death, you wouldn't have known it was even foul play. The Queen's glare silenced him. Not that I ever would. It's just so pointless. Had you, I would have treated you much the same, Dany told him. I'd expect nothing less. The Queen hung her head, all enthusiasm and promise that had filled her when landing in Dragonstone, having evaporated. The place only represented death and ruined dreams to her at this point. I'll have to tell Aemon his surrogate grandson is dead. Gods. How is Theon Greyjoy's condition? With that at least, Barristan had good news. He's been knocked out, plus a nasty shoulder wound. The healers have done their best to keep it from festering, but they think he'll live. That's what they said of Drogo. When will he wake? Could be tonight. Could be in a week. It depends on the blood loss. Nodding, Daenerys knew she would see him first as she woke. Only he and Dakaray knew what Jon's last moments were like, and Dakaray wouldn't talk. So what is our next step going to be? Tyrion mused. I don't know. Dany lowered her gaze, looking no one in the eyes. All I know, I want to be alone. Leave me. Not ones to disobey a direct order, the advisors dutifully shuffled off, eager to return to their warm beds and solitude, especially after all that had transpired. But the Queen wasn't done with one. Not you, Missandei. Please stay. The translator stilled, offering Grey Worm an apologetic look before turning back towards her queen. Of course, whatever you need. Dany stayed in her chair at the head of the table, while Missandei scooted her own chair closer to Dany's left. She laid her hand on top of Dany's. I'm here for you. Thank you, Missy. Suddenly in the distance, a loud roar boomed over the island. Daenerys closed her eyes, a knowing look on her face. That's Drogon. Missy didn't challenge. The Queen had a spiritual connection with her dragons that no one but her could fully understand. Exemplified as another roar screeched at the sky. Viserion. He was always the most high-pitched of them. Hands over her lap, the translator looked at her queen and friend with sympathy. They probably feel your pain, your grace. She nodded. Aye. Since they were hatchlings, suddenly another roar joined them. This one so loud it almost shook the keep, both enraged and mournful, as if challenging the gods themselves for their cruelty. Dany went slightly white. That's Regale. I've never heard him this angry before. It could be simple sensitivity to her, but something else. Mayhaps he feels lonely on top of it all. Unable to fathom the cause, Dany nodded. Mayhaps that's it. A deep, saddened sigh fell from her lips. I'm glad you're here, Missy. You're the only one that I can truly talk to. Always, Miss Andi smiled. Is there something you want to talk about? I'm sure you already know. Not the whole story, Miss Ass said. But yes, I've grasped most of it. I saw your reaction to Jon Stark's body. You felt something deep for him. Something is a good word for it, because I can't encapsulate it all in words, Dany smiled. A bit. Sad, but genuine. I doubt anyone could truly understand, even if I tried. Quite true. Daenerys Targaryen was a mystery even to Miss Andi, even if the handmaiden had access to the young woman underneath all the power and titles. You are the blood of the dragon, the mother of dragons, but I think you'd be best served to try to get it out. Her thoughts were jumbled even on this, a conclusion apparent, but the reasoning quite enigmatic in the least. What kind of person rides a dragon? Thinks she can brave fires, forge a realm out of the ashes of the chains and muck of the past? Her sad smile persisted. To fall in love with a foe, not the dozens of warriors. Lords, loyal men that looked at me as if I were a goddess, but the greatest commander for my greatest foe that drew my eye. You do have a tendency to make the impossible happen. This is different, Missy. A prophet creates miracles. A dragon seeks out the impossible. It's in our blood and nature, I suppose, to make it difficult for ourselves to fight the bloody fight or to love those a normal person shouldn't, be it our own family or our enemies. It was Jon Stark. She chuckled mournfully. The reality of it took a long time to comprehend, only when I held his head in my hands. I'm so sorry, Miss Andi frowned for her, reaching for Dany's hand. There was nothing worse than losing one's love before even allowing it to be known. She was lucky with Grey Worm that way. She shrugged. Don't be. It's not your fault. It's mine. What do you mean? Daintier turned away. I've been betrayed many times. Yet this hurts the worst. Unsure of what comfort to give that hadn't already been said, Miss Andi noticed a slight conflict in her voice. What betrayal are you talking about? Dario? A sigh, the Targaryen queen stood and walked away from her, out at the stormy darkness. His betrayal hurts, but I only expected him to be loyal, not anything more than an ally, a subordinate. It's why I kicked him out of my bed. She leaned against the windowsill. It wasn't worth allowing someone I cared little about to open up my greatest intimacy. Even with her never knowing love, Dany craved it even then. So whose betrayal hurt the most? Miss Andi asked, genuinely confused. There was a terse silence, hanging like a cloud. My own Dany ended up murmuring. I betrayed myself. How? Turning around, it looked as if Daenerys was crying, but her eyes were dry. She was beyond tears. I loved Jon Stark. I think something inside me knew, even before all of this. But I sent him away regardless. He seemed to want to stay, or at least try to come to some sort of understanding before leaving. But I refused to give him a choice. Dany laughed, though the mirth didn't reach her grieving eyes. After everything I learned, after all my uncle told me, I refused him even the choice to love me. I think he knew. She changed ruefully, seeing Dainty's slight agony at the word change. He was a lord. Honor and duty were his life. Dany shook her head. No, I saw his face. Moons of yelling, shouting, screaming, hissing, begging to leave for the north, only to almost plead with me to stay, as if not having a final moment to me brought him physical pain. Her eyes sparkled with unshed tears. You may have done it to Jon, but it feels as if I did it as well. Stabbed him in the heart, and then stabbed myself. Oh, Daenerys. Jon died, something that I have to accept, however. It wrenches my heart. She paused for a moment, inhaling softly. I can't imagine the pain he felt, stabbed in the heart, but I do feel wounded. A wound that doesn't feel like it'll ever close, even after Daciel is ash beneath my feet. But her declaration of vengeance rang hollow. And now, Her voice lost all emotion. And now it's too late. I'll never know what he felt, only what I feel. Jon may have taken the blow, but I felt it as well. I'll always have that pain in my heart, and it will be entirely self-inflicted. Dany looked up at Missandei, gaze lifeless. And isn't that truly the sharpest blade? Outside, the dragons continued to bellow into the thundering void. There was nothing less graceful than trying to pilot a skiff through the shallow waters of a shoreline. Well, perhaps trying to haul that skiff ashore, or trying to remove one's clothes before a fuck. Even still, Davos tried to get the cells manning the small boat as quiet as possible while they approached what he hoped was the hidden cove. Easy, lads. Easy, he cautioned. Pull to port. A splash resonated as one Salsail slapped the oar into the choppy water, slipping as the rain soaked them thoroughly. Easy. You try doing this, cunt, the Salsail hissed back, only to be smacked upside the head by his leader. Shut it and just keep rowing. Late at night was the best time to sneak in, given the limitations of the lookouts, and Davos reasoned the dragons. The rain helped massively in covering their approach, but also made their visibility not worth a damn. Keep port. There. He could see the slightly gaping maw of the hidden cove where he had released the Baratheon bastard years ago. Straight. Row amidships. The wind was picking up, starting to push them away. Straight. I fucking heard ya! Sitting quietly in the middle of the boat, Melisandre remained calm. Do not panic. The Lord shows the way. Fuck the Lord. I want my coin. But all the cursing turned out to be anticlimactic. The wind unable to overcome their frantic rowing as the skiff passed into the calm waters of the cove. Well, fuck me. We made it. Letting out a relieved breath, Davos motioned to a strip of the beach up ahead. Get it over there. The entrance to the tunnel is just ahead of those rocks. Proving the lack of grace that beaching was, eventually the men were able to wring their clothes of rainfall and grab their weapons, a hodgepodge of different blades and spears that nonetheless were both light and easy to wield in enclosed spaces. Ready? More enthusiastic to fulfill his will than ever before, Lord Davos. Blinking at the always enigmatic statements from Melisandre, Davos lit a torch and motioned towards the tunnel, just where he said it was. Behind them, the lightning crackled ominously. Davos led them ahead, the torch in his hand their only source of light. It proved more difficult than he'd thought to get his bearings. Truly, he'd only used these tunnels once, so an immediate sense of direction probably shouldn't have been expected. There were many paths, and none seemed like the right choice. The winding corridors seemed to get tighter and tighter as they strolled along. Do we know where we're going? In the back, the captain asked, probably realizing Davos's confusion when they stopped at a fork in the path. Davos began, but was cut off by the Red Woman. It's this way, Melisandre said, walking off into the darkness to the right. Clearly she meant for them to follow, but she disappeared into thin air, rather quickly. With no better ideas, Davos shrugged and followed after her. They caught up soon enough. She couldn't get that far ahead without light. Yet it seemed like Melisandre got off just fine without it. Head held high, no confusing stops when decisions needed to be made. Felt like they made twice as much progress with her leading than Davos. To accent that point, the team reached a spiraling stone staircase. They'd seen nothing of the like up until then. Melisandre did stop before the first step, though she merely glanced behind her at them. Just up this staircase is the lower levels of the castle. It won't be too difficult to find the cells from there. Right, Sir Davos? Davos cleared his throat and nodded. Yes, of course we should be able to find it easily enough. It was chilly outside, Blackwater Bay no slouch, even without snow in the south, but within the depths of the volcanic island, it was stifling. Men sweating profusely as they struggled to grip onto the swords and harpoons they carried as weaponry. How much fucking longer? Hissed one sousily. Shut it, Davos hissed back. This staircase goes on fucking forever. I said, shut it. They finally reached a door at the top of the winding steps. His dagger was drawn by his side. Davos wiped a sheen of sweat from his bald head and reached for the handle. His mutilated fingers wouldn't ever grip anything again, but the simple latch didn't need a grip. It gave way and pushed in with ease. The corridor was damp, but Davos saw several torches lining the walls, each about 10 paces apart. I know where I am now. This had been one of the hallways Stannis' men had dragged him through after he threatened the Lady Melisandre. And now here he was, with Melisandre breaking into the same cells he had lived in for moons. The gods have a sense of humor. They do. Motioning to the men to follow, he raised his dagger and hurried along. Thankfully, the damp yet not puddled floors muffled the scuffs of their shoes. 2 of the cells of their 3 best fighters they took point, while the other covered their rear, checked around the corners of various corridors. No one moved until the signal was given that the coast was clear. Each section brought fresh tension. Someone lit the damn torches. Only Melisandre, a tiny smirk on her face, was nonplussed. "What is in your mind, Red Woman?" Davos would have liked to know whether he'd ever see Meria or his sons again. "Here," he announced in a whisper, pointing to a thick wooden door. "That's the dungeon." He recognized that massive wooden beam and steel latch anywhere. Get it open. Cursing at how soggy and moldy the beam was, the cells nevertheless quickly heaved it off, Davos pulling open the latch and entering the place he had called home for many moons. It was just as Davos remembered, 1 step above the 7 hells. The Valyrians that built this place must have loved sensory deprivation as a torture technique, so there was no natural light, only a few flickering torches, and those managed to cast a weak orange illumination in the hallways. Very little to the cells, making it hard to see who was within. "I can't see a bloody thing," one of the cells remarked. "Check each of them closely," Davos said, using his torch to peer through the bars. His own cell was empty, as were the several adjacent to it. "Dragon Queen doesn't keep many prisoners," he mused. "She's got dragons," muttered another cell. "No need for 'em." The statement made Davos's blood run cold, heart beating as he looked in another empty cell. "You sure that Jon is alive?" he asked Melisandre with a grim frown. "The flames are mysterious and enigmatic, Lord Davos, but in that they are certain he lives." His frown lessened only slightly. "Let's hope those flames are right. Wait, there's someone here," he called out, finally seeing a slumped human form in the cell at the farthest corner of the dungeon. The one where Stannis always kept the most horrid of prisoners, the ones he wanted to suffer. As the Celestials gathered around, one with a crowbar ready to pry it open, Davos thought he heard humming from within. Jon, is that you?" "Nothing, just more humming." A groan echoed through the cavernous dungeon as they used the crowbar to break the lock on the cell door. Davos pushed it open and jogged inside. "Jon, it's Lord Davos. We're here to get you." He trailed off just as he caught a glimpse of the man resting in the cells. Shoulder-length hair framed his face, but it was a dark bronze rather than raven black. "Who are you?" Ceasing his humming, the man quirked his head upward. "Dare you Nahars. If you're the guys sent to bust me out of here, I wouldn't confuse me with that fucking bastard if I were you." He had no idea who Daenerys Nahars was, but if he insulted Jon like that, then he was an enemy. "Where's Jon Stark?" Davos said, as loud as he could without yelling. "The bastard? Oh, you're a bit too late for a rescue," Dario scoffed. "What in fuck's name does that mean?" Davos hissed, then his face darkened. "Did the Dragon Queen burn him?" "Oh no, the Queen never harmed him. Me, however, well, not so much." The cells were getting impatient. "He's a mad cunt. Let's get out of here." The lead one hissed, but Davos wasn't done. "What did you do to Jon Stark?" Surprising even himself, Davos struck the man's cheek with a right hook. "Answer me." "Shut the fuck up." The man, Daddio, only laughed. "You'll find out soon. Please do tell Stannis, or Cersei, or whoever the fuck you work for." "Davos," he turned to see Melisandre. "We need to go," she told him firmly. Nodding, Davos hit the laughing Daddio upside the head, knocking him out. Best not to leave anyone that could sound the warning. "Just shut it." The last cell slammed the door to the cell shut as they began to exit, only to all halt as the sounds of steps echoed through the dungeons. "Ah, Axin Vakduras Inunike, Pastan Zir Eula," Grey Worm told his lover, hoping that Missandei would believe him. "Nike, Pendagon Ziri Ivili, Begon said Daria." Missandei offered a small smile, leaning over to kiss his cheek. "Missal Dario Turgan Nuda, Mary Dario, Kessa Zalagon Sit." She stopped as they turned into the dungeons to find a collection of 6 men, and 1 woman, all parties involved, just staring at each other. Blinking, tension so thick it could be cut with a knife. Davos regarded the unsullied soldier and pretty, frizzy-haired foreign woman with both shock and fear. Good evening, he stammered out, his salsails regarding him as if he was mad. The tension was broken when Missandei screamed. Dova Gaddy! Already Grey Worm had drawn his short sword, quickly racing back as he covered his lover's flight. Kirin and Tissi, Isso Sambazmion. Alright, lads. We're fucking booking it, shouted the lead salsail, literally manhandling Davos as they raced out of the dungeons. Davos was barely able to keep from tripping. We still need to find Jon. Fuck that. I ain't dying for you. They were almost at the door to the staircase when the Unsullied returned with more of his men, spears bristling as they advanced, forcing them back into another wall of Unsullied pikemen that emerged from another one of the doors. Seven hells! Put your weapons down and you will not be harmed, Missandei announced, having recovered her composure for the most part, heart still beating out of her chest. Sighing, Davos knew when to admit defeat. Well, better do as she says. His dagger came clattering to the ground, followed by the others in quick succession. Just before the Unsullied moved to take them into custody, Melisandre stepped forward, barking something in High Valyrian that meant nothing to him, but caused the pretty foreign lady to gasp. What did you say? Davos asked hesitantly. I told her that you were the hand to King Stannis. He gaped at her. Why the fuck would you do that? Melisandre smirked. To get us before the Dragon Queen, he had no reply to that as he was forcefully taken into custody. I cannot take any more of this. Aside from Ruiego's death, the death of Drogo and her abandonment by most of the Khalasar had left some time for Daenerys to properly mourn her loss, to prepare for the hatching of her dragons. But the gods or fate or circumstance was cruel to her. Not once was she allowed to mourn the death of her late love. Are you saying they wish to break out Daario? Shaking his head, Barristan walked beside her. No. If that were the case, we likely wouldn't have found them. They could have easily escaped, likely through the same way they got in. How did they get in? We're not sure yet, Your Grace. Gods, she muttered, but composed herself in a regal facade, hiding how shattered her heart and soul truly were, before entering the throne room. Presents drawing bows from her advisors and blood riders clicked heels from her, unsullied, and shivers from the cowering prisoners. Aside from two, Missandei cleared her throat as deigned to accede upon the dragonglass throne, presenting Daenerys of House Targaryen. That will be enough, Missandei. Daenerys just wanted this over and done with. Where were they found? Skulking near the cells, Your Grace, Missandei replied. Then she gestured to Davos. The Red Priestess said he was the hand to Stannis Baratheon. Dany was obviously surprised. Hand? To Stannis? Her eyes settled on Davos. What are you doing here? How did you get into my keep? The Onion Knight may have been her enemy, but he was respectful, far more than many highborns she knew. I've been Stannis' hand for many years, including those when he was the lord of this castle. I know it well. Davos noticed the queen's abundantly dirty clothes. Dried blood. What has happened here? The blood isn't hers, 'cause she's walking around. No one could survive losing that much blood. Scowling, Dany narrowed her gaze. She ignored his question. Tell me why I shouldn't just leave you to my dragons. Sadly, I haven't got one, Davos shrugged. Knowing the cells were gaping at him incredulously, but he didn't really care. Frankly, I'm surprised we're still breathing. I know how Stannis would have treated an infiltration such as this. Do what you want with me, but spare them. They're only here 'cause I paid him. Are you suggesting you'd like to meet my dragons? The fact he asked for mercy for his men rather than himself heartened Stannis' hand to her. The fact he was Stannis' hand didn't... Seer? Davos, my name is Sir Davos Seaworth. The Onion Knight, Barristan spoke up. I know of you. Stannis was Robert's master of ships for some time. You were with him as his deputy. And I know you, Sir Barristan Selmy, replied Davos. Yes, I was, for a time, but oftentimes I went where Stannis did. After Robert and Immer got into their catfight, well, I sided with Stannis, as I always have. Again, Sir Davos, I ask you why you snuck into my keep, Daenerys huffed. Patience running thin, he narrowed his eyes. Is it not clear? Why else would I be here? Why else would I risk death? Though I heard from your man in the cells it might all be for naught, Davos frowned, then looked away. Barristan realized it first. Oh, I see. He stepped forward. Your Grace, I believe that they had come to try to rescue Jon Stark. Dany tried not to have a reaction on her face as Davos began speaking again. Is that his blood? She stiffened regardless. What'd you do to him? Perhaps she shouldn't reply. Just send them back to the cells to deal with later. But she wanted to defend herself. Anyone thinking she had anything to do with Jon's death didn't sit right with her. I did nothing to him. Davos pointed at her gown. But that's his blood. I know it. What'd you do? Bathe in it after you stabbed him in the heart? I didn't kill him. Doxley's voice raised higher than she intended, eyes blazing dragon fire. So much that Davos actually flinched, backing up 2 paces. I suggest you stop assuming you know anything about what happened here, lest you do burn up before my dragons. I know you must have heard much about me. You probably thought all of it was true. She lowered her voice, but it was still quite menacing. In reality, most were lies. I can tell you that. But one thing was true. I do have 3 full-grown dragons. Perhaps you saw them on your way in. I use them when I need to. The question is, are you going to give me a reason? Too stunned to reply, especially given the vitriol of her denial, Davos remained silent, as did the confused cell-sales, shaking and hoping the Dragon Queen would just let them go. Melisandre, on the other hand, stood straight, smiling softly as she always did. Only more so, Dorji continued. I suggest you don't. You've snuck into my castle and you dare accuse me of killing your Warden of the North. You find yourself standing before me having committed a crime, and I am not in a merciful mood. Watch your tongue, for your life is hanging in the balance. Davos's mind was sent reeling by her words, momentarily unable to form a response. So Melisandre spoke for him. She didn't kill him. All eyes went to the Red Woman as she stepped up. She couldn't have. Nothing would have been more difficult. A Red Priestess, Daenerys fluttered to her, then back to Davos. Why are the 2 of you traveling together? I have a mission. I've been sent by the Lord of Light to see his will done. Religious men had said many things about her in her lifetime. Daenerys was skeptical of them all, especially witches and mages, after what one had done to her and her child. And what is his will? She spat, glaring at the woman. Melisandre was unaffected. Simple. Where is he? You can't see him. I'm the only one who can help him. Help him? Barristan asked with a confused countenance. What can you do for him? I will show you. No, Dany shook her head. She won't allow another witch near a man she loved. You will not touch him. In response, Melisandre moved closer to the queen, unafraid of Barristan stepping in between them. She got as close as she could, her head cocked to the side as she looked Daenerys in the eyes. I know your heart. Your intentions were good, but you stood in the way. I can help you if you allow me. You can get what you want. You do not know what I want? I do, Melisandre smiled. It's not hard to see what you wanted from him. You're lucky. I can give you another chance. Dainty's jaw clenched as the Red Witch's words hit her ears. What will you do? Take me to him. The Red Witch wants to do what? Face ashen. Conflict filled Daenerys' eyes. She claims she can bring Jon back from the dead. It was as if her life had been uprooted yet again. Peering at her as if she sprouted dragon wings, Tyrion shook his head. First grumpkins and snarks now. He looked incredulous. You know that sounds outlandish, right? Of course I do, Dany snapped, but her expression wasn't reassuring. Everything that happened is outlandish. Your Grace, please, Tyrion sighed. I know it sounds mad. I do. Gods. First falling for Jon Stark, then Daario betraying her, and now seriously considering using a witch. If a year ago someone would have told her this story, Daario would have laughed in their face. Then why are you considering it? She closed her eyes. You know why? To say that her advisors disapproved of this was an understatement. Your Grace, ignore those that talk of prophecies and witchcraft, Barristan pleaded, hand ready on the jolt of his sword to cut down the Red Witch at her command. It did not escape Dany's notice. Still your blade. Enough blood has been shed. Much of it was on her dress. She would have said it focused her, while others would suppose it drove her mad. Barristan was of the latter. I saw foolish prophecy destroy your brother. Don't let it destroy you. Rhaegar was so obsessed with the promised prince, it drew him to abandoning his family and led his house to ruin. I can't watch you do this. I have known many a Red Priest, Your Grace, Varys interjected. Their charisma is only eclipsed by their brutality and skill to deceive. Please don't do this, my queen, Missandei begged. Of all present, she knew the pain and suffering that Daenerys still endured from the loss of her babe. To let her be taken advantage in a state of desolation yet again was unconscionable to the freed woman. Don't hurt yourself on the altar of false hope. You see, none of us wish. Nuff, Tyrion, and all the others were silenced as the Mother of Dragons roared. I understand your concerns, counselors, she said in a softer but no less firm tone. Gods, I do understand. The sight of her child, of Rhaego, even the tiniest glimpse that Jorah had mercifully cut short, mutilated in the most vile of deformities, was the stuff of nightmares. To this day, for Daenerys, how she wished to take every witch and cast them into the fires of her dragons. But yet, lips curled into a scowl, she approached the Red Woman. Your fellow priests stand by me. Support me in my quest from the Bay of Dragons to here. Tell me, why do you oppose me, and why should I trust you if you do oppose me? Silent as the Queen's counselors begged Daenerys Targaryen to take her head, Melisandre met the Valyrian beauty's violet eyes. They saw what they saw in the flames, and I cannot speak for them. I saw what I saw in the flames their lord summoned for me, a battle in the snow, fought by a man wielding a sword in the darkness, a sword bathed in light. The promised prince, born of salt and smoke. This was the same prophecy that led Rockar to his demise. Barristan wasted no time in drawing his blade. Allow me to execute this woman for murder and witchcraft. Put that blade away before you hurt someone, Daenerys hissed in response. I will not ask again, Lord Hand. Tension filled the room before Barristan complied again. Your loyalty to my late brother is admirable, Ser Barristan. But he is dead, and I am not him. Do not confuse hindsight for him with foresight for me. A sigh. It won't happen again, your grace. See that it doesn't? Daenerys shifted her gaze to the Master of Whisperers. Lord Varys, has this woman spoken of the promised prince before? Birds have sung of many a tale such as that. Yes, from the fields of Storm's End to Renly Baratheon, the false king, to before the wildlings at Castle Black, Melisandre the Red Priestess has proclaimed Stannis Baratheon as the promised prince, using much the same words as before. His eyebrow rose. I recall someone indicating that Renly Baratheon made a joke about Lord Stannis being a ham. The Red Woman's expression didn't change. I believe he did, Lord Varys. He was never a very respectful person. Melisandre turned back to Daenerys. I cannot claim to see all of the expanses of time. That power only belongs to one mortal being at a time. What I do claim is that I can see the glimpses in time the Lord of Light sends me. One of those is the great battle in the snow, which you say Stannis will fight. She frowned. I must say, my Lord Hand's offer looks more and more tempting by the second. You misunderstand me. The man I see in the snow is Jon Stark. Melisandre could almost see Davos staring at her, half surprised and half angry. It was one thing to suspect the betrayal of one's king. It was another to hear it explicitly. The mind had a terrific ability to wishfully think. I was wrong about it being Stannis. My identification of Lord Stark is completely certain. Daenerys walked only a few paces before her, eyes narrow. So you say? A woman that claimed different sides and spun inconsistent tales was not to be trusted in Daenerys' opinion. But unlike mummers and imposters, this woman claimed she could back up her claims with the most powerful of magic. You've told me you could give me another chance, and to see the body of Lord Stark. Explain yourself. I know of a ritual, Melisandre began. For the first time, her voice was somewhat unsteady. Performed under the right set of circumstances and with the will of the Lord of Light, this ritual brings a person back to life. You know this ritual, Daenerys asked. You can perform it? Better question, does it actually work? Tyrion added. She glared at the imp. I have seen it happen. Tyrion's brow rose. Oh? Haven't done it yourself? All right. When did you see it? Going quiet yet again, Melisandre's bravado and determination seemed to deflate a bit. Davos had never seen her lose a bit of confidence in her life, even after Stannis lost at the Blackwater. But he supposed this set of circumstances would tax a person. Both she and he were the closest to death than at any other point. I have seen the after effects of a man with the scars of wounds supposed to be fatal. Of a fellow priest that announced to me his miracles. Which? Priest? Barristan was not playing games. Her voice was almost a whisper. Thoros of Myr. Tyrion stifled a laugh. Thoros of Myr? You mean to tell me that drunkard brought someone back to life? Are you sure? I feel that you would be the last person to hold a person's fondness for cups against him. Lord Tyrion, Melisandre replied, earning a frown from the imp. Regardless, this speaks to the ritual's effectiveness. Even a man such as Thoros can do it. He's brought a man back 7 times. I find that hard to believe, Lady Melisandre. Whether you believe it or not is irrelevant. It's true. The ritual works, and I can perform it, Melisandre said calmly. Then she looked to Dany. I will bring him back to you. But no one was convinced by this. Least of all Barristan. I've known Thoros of Myr, your grace. While in battle he could be useful. I would rather trust a sea slug than him in terms of his effectiveness on religious matters. He sent a glare in the direction of the witch before continuing. She peddles the same false promises and cryptic prophecy that corrupted your brother's mind and drove him to ruin upon the battlefield. Allow me to rid you of this creature, so that you don't suffer the same fate. Queen Daenerys, please. Her attention, having drifted inward, was suddenly shifted to the quiet prisoner. Lord Davos, she asked with a hint of darkness. You are the hand to Stannis Baratheon, so keep in mind that every part of my instincts suggest I should at very least lock you in the dungeons next to Dakaray. Tread carefully. Gulping, Davos nevertheless persisted. He had been in sticky situations before and knew how to be brave. I realize that this is, let me be blunt, mad, but if you've seen the things I've seen, the miracles this woman has done. It still shocked him. She summoned visions, manipulated the weather. 7 hells. I've seen her birth a demon into the world as one would a baby. Wait, Tyrion's eyes widened. There were rumors that Rinsing the Baratheon was killed by his brother through blood magic rather than Brienne of Tarth. You're saying... Davis didn't want to admit it, but his and Melisandre's and Jon's lives were on the line. That happened. Varys pursed his lips. That would make Stannis a kinslayer. Oh, he and his birds could use this. Wincing, Davos bullied past it. Talking to Daenerys. You've seen amazing things, too. Birthed dragons by walking into the flames, if the legends are to be believed. Others will have you deny this part of yourself. The magic. Well, fuck him. He approached her, only for his guards to block his path. Jon Stark's life is on the line, so fuck 'em all. Step back, Lord Diabas, Barristan barked, Stannis' hand getting far too close to the queen for his liking. It didn't take a mind reader for the Onion Knight to understand the unease of his captors. Yes, Queen Daenerys, I am the hand to King Stannis. I'm proud to serve at his side, and it is every bit your right to look upon me as you would to Tywin Lannister or Qyburn the False Maester. Davos spoke earnestly. Frankly, he had no use for the elaborate games of deception those around him delighted in. I am your enemy, and you are mine, and with that, I am comfortable. But we have a common cause at this moment, and that is making sure Jon Stark is among the living. Enemy or not, Daenerys rather liked this man. Respected him to a length not seen in any enemy since... Jon, your candor is refreshing, Lord Davos. But why do you wish Jon to live? She leaned to him, getting in his face, trying to unsettle him. If I told you that he would head to the north or side with me upon Lady Melisandre reviving him, would you still hold common cause with me? Only seeing one of the dragons themselves would unsettle him further. But Davos refuses to heal. I would. This was surprising. And why do you suspect Jon Stark to be such a man that you'd lobby the avowed foe of your king to save him? He formulated his answer carefully. Because Jon Stark is a good man. He didn't deserve what happened to him even before now. And while that shit is part of this shit world, if there's something I could do to save a genuinely honorable man, I'd damn well do it. And I think you agree with me. After what seemed to be an interminable length of time, Daenerys quirked her head to the side. You truly believe that, don't you? She eyed him carefully, Valyrian highborn to the son of a crabber. I sense little deception in your voice. No deception. I've worn my liking of Jon Stark since he was merely Jon Snow, the bastard brother of the Night's Watch who put an arrow through the king beyond the wall's heart in order to spare him the pain of burning. Inwardly, Dany was surprised. I didn't know he did that. Of course he would do something that noble. It only made her heartache greater, having lost such a good man. Without the at times irritating distraction his capture created, Perhaps she would have become the power-obsessed monster that Daenerys sought to steer her back into. As such, she gave Daenerys the tiniest of smiles. If only we met under different circumstances, Lord Daenerys. Unrepentant enemy though he was, he held a high opinion of Jon all the same. I would have had great use for you as an ally. Nodding his head, Daenerys smiled back. Frankly, it would have been nice having the dragons behind me instead of wanting to burn me alive. He eyed Barristan, Tyrion, Varys, and Missandei. However many of your small council wishes for me to be in that position, because I know Stannis would reciprocate such if Barristan were captured. He didn't need to be dishonest of the kind of man Stannis was. He followed him, missing the top half of his left set of fingers after all. A raised hand silencing the coming assault of arguments from her council. Daenerys turned to the one person she trusted, but had not spoken yet. Grey Worm, would you care to tell me your thoughts on the matter? Silent and at attention the entire time, Grey Worm had listened to everything around him. I am a soldier, my queen. My opinion is very valuable to me as my trusted commander, never to betray me. The Unsullied seemed to smile at the praise, though no one really could tell. Please. His forehead wrinkled, hard, in thought. Queen Daenerys came to Astapor with 1 ship, 60 men, and 3 dragons. She leave with the same plus all Unsullied. Astapor free behind her. As a result, all slaves free. He clasped his chest in loyalty to the Mother of Dragons. Slaves try for freedom, centuries upon centuries, yet dream impossible. You made dreams possible when no one else could. Therefore, if you wish Jon Stark to live, you will make happen. Turgon Nudo. Missandei murmured, in disbelief he would tacitly support the efforts of the Red Priests, some of the greatest players in the slave trade of Essos. You all are dismissed. I require time to think. She looked at the guards. Keep them under watch in my solar. They are my guests until I say otherwise. Grey Worm nodded and led them away, Barristan and Tyrion offering Daenerys grim stares before following them. Come on, your grace, Missandei said quietly. Let's get you some fresh clothes. She looked over her blood-stained dress, soaked in Jon's dried blood. Truly not wanting to take it off, the practicality of it all made it impossible. All right. Reaching out to clasp her translator's hand, Daenerys let Missandei escort her towards her chambers, barely able to keep it together as she tried to reconcile her hope for the future with the pain of the past. The future maester's life mostly consisted of taking care of the much older master. Aside from that, reading whatever books Sam could get his hands on. His departure from the Citadel did allow him to take a few articles he'd otherwise never obtained. Unfortunately, he'd read all of them over and over again with nothing worth remembering. Well, nothing about what he wanted to read. The Long Night. Specifically, the Night King. How to defeat him. He and Jon were one of few people not confined to Castle Black that had actually seen them. The dead. More than likely, they'd have some trouble getting anyone to believe what they'd seen north of the wall. So some sort of evidence would be helpful. But out of the 5 or so books he borrowed, he'd found no such information. Just a couple books about geography, history of the North, and some dumb old maester's diary. He'd read through the diary a few different times. The man wrote down everything he ever did, which might have been useful if Sam was interested in how to be a smarmy bigot. He'd hoped his time with the other maesters at the Citadel might have been enlightening. Instead, it was traveling further into the dark, stuck in their ways with no intention of changing. As a result, he decided to visit the library in Dragonstone. Perhaps there might be something useful there. Yen went with him, of course. You'll be able to get through more with me, dear Samwell. Sam raised an eyebrow. Had they discovered a way for the blind to read? You don't speak High Valyrian, do you? He blinked. No. Well, then you'd need me to translate. Sam reddened from embarrassment. How had he not figured that out? Hours later, stacks and stacks of the leather-bound volumes, many frayed by moths and natural wear and tear, sat in front of them. A lot was in fact written in Valyrian. This being Dragonstone, after all. It may have been years since Aemon spoke the language, but his skills were top-notch, translating it freely for Sam and even giving him some pointers. And yet nothing about the Long Night was found beyond what he already knew. Aside from one intriguing tidbit, Sam's eyes scanned over the faded paper, searching desperately for the words he needed. Many of the books he had read spoke of a notebook carried by one Lord Commander Hort, one that led the Night's Watch through the days of the Conquest. resisting the urge to journey south to assist his brother Black Heron to stick to his vows, extinguishing his line but proving a mighty example of subsequent Brothers of the Watch. Apart from that, he was supposedly unremarkable, but half a dozen tomes of Septon's sorcerers and maesters referred to a diary of his, remarking many times of what the Lord Commander wrote about as to either support or debunk their feelings of magic. Wiping sweat from his brow, he hoped the notes would reveal the secrets of how the Night King was defeated thousands of years ago. Clearly, that information would be greatly useful. And yet, all there were these secondary accounts of someone who read the original documents, not the actual writings of the Lord Commander herself. Carefully holding it close to him, even writing it in at every opportunity, Sam reckoned not everyone could read and write at that time. So the notion that someone had seen something worth recording was worth note. He needed to find the diary, or at least find out what had been written in it. Maester Aemon? Yes, Samwell. Aemon had dozed off slightly, but was a light sleeper in his old age. Did you need my advice again? Tell me, do Lord Commanders keep diaries? Aemon chuckled. Aye, they do. It's customary, in order to detail the history of the Watch. Why? Well, Sam shrugged. There's a lot of mentions to a diary written by Lord Commander Hoare at the time of the conquest, but no copy of the diary. He gestured to their stacks of books. It's the only thing I've found that may contain information we don't already know. Maybe the walkers have been awake longer than we thought. Stroking his chin, Aemon's jaw expanded as he thought. There are two copies of these diaries, usually. One official one, and the other is transcribed by the Mainster to send to the Citadel for the official histories. I've transcribed 8 of them in my life. I didn't see any in either Castle Black or the Citadel. At Castle Black, I am entrusted with keeping them, he chuckled, smiling sheepishly in a toothless grin. The other copies, I think the Archmaesters keep them under lock and key along with the other restricted tomes. Perhaps I can write to Ed and have the original sent to Winterfell. There wasn't a lot of written history of those times, and that diary could contain information vital to our survival against the Night King. Just then the doors to the library opened, the fur-clad figures of Dothraki blood riders announcing the arrival of Queen Daenerys. Sam quickly rose. Your Grace. Your Grace. Aemon repeated, not standing, though he likely had the privilege not to. Looking for me? Yes, she replied, voice grim, killing the old maester's smile from the tone. For Sam, even the impeccable black dress of the finest wool and silk didn't hide her haggard appearance. Dark circles under her eyes, hastily brushed hair, and pale skin. Something bad had clearly happened. Jon is dead. What you'd say? Sam frowned, taken off guard. He set his book aside. Dany sighed, clearing her throat as quietly as possible. Last night Jon died. Sam's face slowly turned into total disbelief. Yet when he noticed her seriousness, his head shook back and forth. Jon? No. How could... what? Seeing Jon's friend grieve was crushing her, challenging Daenerys' resolve. Finding her great-uncle just silent, unable to speak or move, it nearly shattered her. Barely able to stand, Sam leaned against his chair, breathing rapidly and trying to fight tears. How did he die? A traitor in my ranks named Daario Naharis. Wait, the sellsword that brought us here? Suddenly, a wave of anger seemed to grip Sam. He followed you. You had Jon killed. Dany recoiled. No. Monster? You're a monster. He moved forward, triggering the Dothraki to scramble to protect their Khaleesi. Samwell, stop. He did, eyes widening. Aemon never yelled. She killed? No, she did not. Finally rising, pushing himself out of his chair. You may not know her, but I do. I can tell you she is not capable of committing such a tragedy. Truly, it is a tragedy. I loved that boy. But don't stand here and overreact. Over something you know nothing about. You weren't there. Sam's mouth shut, looking at Aemon. He backed up and turned from everyone, clearly not able to compose himself at that moment. It was murder, Dany finally said. Daario Naharis killed him. The cowardly man acted out of sheer jealousy. He will be punished greatly. Turning back around, Sam's eyes were puffy. It might have been customary to bow or ask to leave, but he didn't care. His feet carried past Devdiane and out the door, the Dothraki letting him with a few chuckles, not seeing the portly acolyte as much of a threat. Don't worry about him, Aemon said. It's hard. Jon was his best friend. Sighing, Daenerys helped Aemon back into his chair. then took her own close to him. Uncle, I just feel lost now. Lost? How could you ever feel lost? Have you forgotten about your destiny? Seems I've been distracted from that as of late. One of the reasons Dario killed Jon. I see, Aemon chuckled. Young love, I'm so sorry, child. I can't imagine what this must be like for you. It's not new, I've known this feeling before, but I didn't think I'd experience it again. Hoped I wouldn't. Seems you didn't have a choice. She looked up at him. What if I did? Oh, my dear, don't think you had anything to do with this. I can't deny it. I have a hand in it. Dario was one of my men. I had control over him. Instead of tightening my grip, he was set loose. Only because I found him repulsive, Dario said. Out of sight seemed better. Unfortunately, no one was watching him. I'm furious at how easy it must have been for him. I let it happen, Uncle. Sounds like you had a madman acting on his own tendencies. This Dario, he always hated Jon? From the very beginning, yes, though it's complicated in a way. He always favored a more uncompromising tack with prisoners carried over from my experiences in Meereen. The arguments, 7 hells, the arguments between him and Massader on one side and Barristan on the other shook the Great Pyramid. Looking back on it, he had been right about that one harpy, which was why she gave him more leniency now. It appears I still have much to learn. With Jon, things became different, more personal. I think deep down Dario became jealous after I sent him out of my sight, clothing such selfishness in some sort of righteousness. He must have known I started visiting Jon. Nodding, her uncle knew such pettiness and ego-driven loyalty from his younger years. Brynden Rivers had been dismissed to the wall for something similar, though he had better reasons. He acted on his own, Aemon pointed out, had nothing to do with you. It did. Dario killed Jon because he thought it would get him back in my good graces, would transform me into some Maegor the cruel that so dazzled him in Slaver's Bay. She looked grim. It wasn't the first time he did this. Jane spent a few minutes recounting the killed sellsword commanders in Yunkai. He took it in without judgment. For a ruler, there will always be those that seek out their own personal gain with loyalty. Some flatter, some perform favors, and some make favors. See Tywin Lannister's butchery of your good sister, niece, and nephew. His voice caught a bit, never having met them. Aemon still grieved for the death of his family. He would grieve for Jon too, but alone, not to leave Dany alone and devoid of comfort. The most determined will act proactively to push a ruler in a given decision or not. Motivation's immaterial. And in my naivete, I let Dario do it to Jon. She let her head fall into her hands. Gods, everything is lost. Everything. She stopped, Melisandre's promises still in her mind. Anne picked up on it. You don't think all is lost? Why? She sighed. A red witch. She and Stannis' hand infiltrated the keep to try and rescue Jon from the dungeons. Upon capture, she claims that he knows a ritual that can bring him back to life. Aemon was quiet for a few moments before speaking to her again. The ink is dry, but perhaps it can be rewritten. Doubting met her uncle's eyes. Perhaps, but can I trust the Red Witch? I don't know, my child. Yet, ask yourself this. Is it worth the risk? Aemon asked her, raising his eyebrows. What's the worst that could happen? He's already passed. I know that, uncle. I'm just worried. About what? My child, I know nothing of magic, aside from its existence, given the presence of you and your dragons. But if there's a chance Jon can return, I believe it's worth the risk. Do you? All I know is the situation got worse the last time I trusted a witch to help me, she said. Then held up 2 fingers. Twice. I was betrayed twice by an evil witch. Is this the very same witch? Well, no. Do you mistrust all witches because one wronged you? No. There were a few Red Priestesses who helped my cause in Meereen. Ah, Red Priestess. Is this not also a Red Priestess offering help now? It is. The Red Priests of Rogue-Chernier say they can perform miracles. I have heard of these, but never saw them, though my brother consulted with many before he embarked on his fateful experiment at Summerhall. Another tragedy in the history of House Targaryen. Taking in Dane's anguish, he understood. You worry about the witch, about what happened to your child in the Dothraki Call? Yes, her voice was soft, barely a whisper. It doesn't matter now, uncle. Jon is dead. I've learned that you cannot manipulate mortality. It didn't end well with Drogo. He actually offered her a smile. Child, I'm afraid I don't understand your hesitancy. I'm a blind man, and I know how you feel about Jon. I don't need eyes to see that. You wish for his return. Now it appears that it may be possible, and you hesitate. Why? Because once before a witch damaged another person you cared for. Dainty bit her lip. I lost my child, uncle. My husband was turned into a shell of himself, unable to speak or move. What if in saving Jon, she destroys everything special about him? And Amon saw it as clear as day. You love him, don't you? He felt happiness at her nod. Us Targaryens, we fall for the most difficult. Daemon for Rhaenyra. Daemon Blackfire for his half-sister, my namesake for his sister the queen, my nephew for his woods witch. It does not shock me that you fell for him. He held his hand out for her to take. Which she did, he's already gone. So all this priestess can do is help him. The past is written, there's nothing you can do about it. While the future, it's in your hands.
If I look back, I am lost.
The temptation was great to fall into the bitterness of the past. It was likely what caused her father to go mad, as it did drive the cruelty of Robert Baratheon and her own brother. I know I will never leave the past, if Jon remains dead. There would be marriages, adopted children of Targaryen blood to some degree in the past, but Daenerys knew there would never be another Jon Stark. It was fresh, but real. In my hands. A dragon never finished a fight, not until it quit. Thank you, uncle. He patted her knee once more. I shall dine with you and Jon tomorrow. Foolishly optimistic, perhaps, but Daenerys was grateful for it all the same. Jon's corpse rested on a table in the middle of the room. The only light was from the fire in a brazier by Jon. His skin had darkened to white. Gone was the blood that warmed his flesh. The image very nearly brought Daenerys to collapse. She had seen so much death in her life, but somehow this was the most painful. Because I love him. It did sound mad, but she knew it to be true. The one man that hadn't cowered before her and her dragons or tried to dominate her for their purposes. As such, what was being set up only brought back the worst of memories. A horse killed and drained of blood, incantations in languages foreign to her ears brought dark magic into the world. The magic that killed her only child. I know it may seem unseemly, your grace, she heard Davos Seaworth tell her, but I've seen her work miracles. She looked up at him, the hand to her enemy. Much like Jon had been, that was why Dainty didn't hate him on sight. Why do you care, Lord Seaworth? His brows wrinkled in thought, 'cause Jon Stark is the one person I know who hasn't let this shit corrupt him. The world is much smaller without him in it. Yes, it is. A shit world that she had always lived through. Only Jon promised something better. Are you ready for this, Lady Melisandre? While her advisors stood around, Missandei hovering near Grey Worm, while Tyrion, Barristan, and Varys passed a flask between them. The Red Witch was hard at work. Everything is settled. All it needs is your approval. The last time I trusted a witch to help me, I became cursed. Do you understand what I'll do if you provide me a similar result? Dany warned the woman, you worship fire. Are you fireproof? You get the same fate the first witch received. Melisandre showed no reaction. Then I have an incentive not to betray you. The other, she had nothing to lose. I do, or at least the cause I fight for does. Daenerys refused to show any weakness, even at the witch's keen understanding of her past. I hope your cause is mighty enough to bring him back. My lord it's why I'm here. You do this for me, perhaps I forget you broke into my castle. Davos cleared his throat, drawing attention to him. He smiled. I've seen this one. His good hand pointed a finger at Melisandre. Do a great many things. Things most men wouldn't believe. I don't even know what I saw at times. Having seen it all, bringing Jon doesn't seem impossible to me. Sighing, Dean shot the older smuggler a glance. For your sake, I hope you're right. Melisandre approached Jon on the table, only a woolen cloth to contain his modesty. His chest sported the scars he'd already obtained. But two more joined them, still fresh, but with dried blood. Nearby, there was a basin in which Melisandre soaked a rag. She wrung it out before wiping down Jon's bloody chest. The crimson stuck to Jon like a second skin. It took some doing to remove it. It smeared over the first wipe, needing two or more get it all off. Once the chest was clean, carefully, Melisandre rolled Jon over to wash the wound on his back. Dany lingered near the door, but she wanted to get closer, like there was something she could do. Her eyes watched Melisandre work closely, even though she knew nothing of what was happening. Once Jon was sufficiently clean, Melisandre retrieved a pair of shears from her sleeve. She began to recite a prayer in High Valyrian. Dany understood it clearly enough. "We ask the Lord to shine his light and lead a soul out of the darkness." Melisandre clipped several locks of Jon's hair, tossed them in the fire. Of this Varys seemed to squirm in discomfort. Hells, Dany did as well, then hair from Jon's beard also into the fire. She brought a flagon of water from a separate table nearby, not before setting the water basin below Jon's head. As she poured the water through Jon's hair, she said more words in High Valyrian. She raked her fingers through the loose hairs, making sure it was dried as much as possible. "We beg the Lord to share his fire, and light a candle that has gone out." Jon's body was unmoving. Nothing had changed. The Red Woman moved to stand over him, hands outstretched across Jon's body, then coming to lay her palms over Jon's wounds. She spoke more words from the prayer again. From darkness, light, from ashes, fire, from death, life. It appeared the Red Woman had said all the words she needed to. Her hands still hovered over Jon's chest. Daenerys wasn't sure what to expect. Really, she wanted Jon to spring back into life. But that didn't immediately happen. Melisandre shook her head slightly and kept repeating the words, from darkness, light, from ashes, fire, from death, life. The same from before, but with more emphasis. Melisandre closed her eyes and raised her voice like that would help. Her hands came off Jon, only to be pressed down harder. From darkness, light. From ashes, fire. From death, life. Despite her best efforts, it didn't work. Jon didn't come back. "Well," Daenerys said after such a long pause, "what happened? How long will this take to work?" She looked at the grim face of Melisandre, the resulting sigh out of Sardidevis, and her heart started to thump out of its chest, as if in the deepest of pain. "No, that can't be it. It just can't." Daenerys found herself grasping for whatever straws she could find. Melisandre didn't respond, just kept saying the words over, and over again. Her lord had sent her here for a reason, to bring Jon Stark back to life. Now, it didn't work. She didn't understand why it wasn't working. Supposedly, the person was to come right back as Thoros said. Perhaps she didn't have enough power. "I am sorry," she said, voice hauntingly empty. "I was certain, more certain than anything before." All in the room stared on, waiting for something to happen. Tyrion and Varys shared a look. They didn't know what to think. Missandei wandered closer to Dany in case she needed support, for she was the only one who truly understood what the Queen was going through. Barristan growled, hand on the hilt of his blade. "I should cut this witch down where she stands. Burn her, as I suggested," Varys added, puffy cheeks flaring in an uncharacteristic ire. "Perhaps it'll just take some time," Davos mused, trying as he did for years by Stannis' side. Be the one that provided hope and positivity to the side of a dour, joyless lord and king. After all, this ritual was given to her second-hand by a rather drunk, "I'll stay with him. Leave us." All eyes turned to the Queen, her slender form leaning against the table, head bent forward as if staring at Jon Stark's eyes. A light tremor against the tiny sliver of shoulder exposed by the still blood-stained dress. "Your Grace," Tyrion began, only to be cut off. "I gave an order, leave us." Wordlessly, her advisors began to shuffle out. The Blood Riders muscled away, Davos and Melisandre, the witch shooting her a look of apology and resignation before she disappeared into the antechamber. Missandei tried to comfort her, but only a light touch was accepted, Daenerys not even looking up. With a sigh, she was the last one out. Everyone had gone. Everyone but her. Dany pulled over a chair with nary a sound and sat by his side. The Queen said she'd stay. For better or for worse. She had meant it. A dainty finger moved on its own accord, gently brushing the still soft curls that matted his forehead. Though clean of all the blood, Jon Stark looked lifeless. Nothing close to the stubborn, northern fool that had so vexed her for moons. The thought brought a smile to her face, masking the hurt. "I wish there was something more I could do." She inhaled a breath, holding it in. She wished she could fill his lungs with it instead of her own. "I know it was my fault. Jon, all of this. His corpse said nothing, as unresponsive as Drogo had been. But he suffered in his state, while Jon Stark would never suffer anything again. My brother, he often spoke of the Iron Throne, she whispered softly, as if soothing a tired child to sleep, still stroking his forehead, of how he would take it as our birthright. I hated my brother by the end, but that way of thinking managed to seep into me regardless. I took up my family's birthright to honor them, but I seemed like I lost myself on the way. Thatchdin's his warm palm cupped his cold cheek. Fire and ice. That is my fault, and I'm truly sorry, Jon. Each moment that passed, Daenerys was on edge, praying that each second would bring him to the land of the living, that Jon would embrace her as a lover would, banishing the pain, her heart aching at each second in which it didn't happen. Gods, I hated you when this all started. You were the most stubborn bastard I ever knew, and I've known my share. It was all mad. A different sort of madness than her father, but mad nonetheless. Eventually I grew used to you, despite your best efforts otherwise. She chuckled, holding back hot tears. Dragons don't choose the easiest mates. We seek out the fight, the fire, the passion, if you will. Dainty's thumb brushed a stray strand of hair behind his ear, an intimate, if pointless act. I suppose I don't understand it even now, but I do love you, and I think, as a wolf, you understand it too. We're tough bloodlines, never enduring the softness or gluttony that a lion or a rose loves. We care not for such things. I didn't even think love existed. Yet, here I am, biting her lip, willing herself not to break down. Daenerys leaned down as she had when his body was still warm and his blood was still fresh. She kissed him on his lifeless lips, cold, idle, and desperate wish gnawing at her, imagining what it would have been like, warm and sweet, as had almost happened in the cave. As she abandoned him in his quarters, I've lost all rights to make demands of you, Jon Stark, but please come back to me, to all that love you. Refusing to draw back, Dany stared at his closed lids. This pain is one I deserve, but not you. Nothing, his face just as still as when she held him the last time. Daenerys cradled it in her arms all the same. I love you, Jon Stark. The ink is dry, but it can be rewritten. Just come back. The white wolf, wounded in the snow. Daenerys realized that she had been dreaming of this very moment, and it threatened to shatter her. Please come back. The length of time she stood there, holding him in the intimacy she had so denied herself the night before, for all her power. The Dragon Queen couldn't decipher it. Hours seemed to pass before the slender form of Missandei arrived, grimacing in grief and concern. My queen, I think it's time for you to sleep. No, she protested weakly. He hasn't woken yet. Dany pulled back to see Jon's face, still lifeless. He obviously wouldn't, but the former slave wasn't about to stab deeper in Dany's heart, so she merely eased the queen up. Glad when there was no resistance. We'll come back in the morning, see if anything changed. A nod from Daenerys followed as the two of them left the chamber, door shutting behind them. Shall I have them put in the cells, your grace? Barristan asked, motioning with his hand towards Melisandre and Davos. The Onion Knight rubbed his bald scalp. I don't understand this. It should have worked. He shouldn't. Meeting eyes with the Dragon Queen and them found not hate but agreement. He shouldn't have died. Suddenly the walls of the keep shook slightly as a whoosh thundered outside. Dany caught a shade of darkened green flash by the window. Reimagined. His roars piercing the din, she resolved to go spend some time with her dragons. Perhaps they'd break her out of her malaise, if for a little while. The roars didn't end, though. Seconds later, Drogon flew by, Viserion close behind, only there was another sound. One far closer that hit her as if two blades clashing in battle. Did you hear that? She asked, wide-eyed. Hear what? Missandei asked before it came again. A crashing followed by a thud. Tyrion blinked. I may be slightly drunk, but I think something toppled over from within the chambers. Seeing Melisandre's lifeless gaze suddenly perk up, fire returning to her. Seeing Dainty go all white. I am mostly certain it isn't the wine, but Daenerys didn't hear him. Didn't hear anyone as she wrenched out of Missandei's grasp and raced back into the room. It was still dark, still gloomy, but instead of upon the table, Jon's corpse was on the ground, groaning and writhing on the ground, as if struggling to stand. He rasped out, trying to say something, but his voice hoarser than a man having emerged from a smoke-filled room. Seemed he had been revived suddenly, then tried to stand and had fallen. "Jon!" Daenerys was by his side in a split second, her own voice screaming orders at her advisors. "Send for a maester, and water. Bring water." "Seven hells," Barristan muttered, while Missandei just stared with eyes as wide as an owl. Tyrion's mouth fell agape, and it didn't seem like it'd close any time soon. Left wondering if he really was that drunk. "Well, I'll be damned. It did work," Davos remarked, less excited than pleased. "Jon Stark, you truly have the heart of the blessed." Easing his face up, Daenerys' heart unclenched for the first time since all of this started at seeing his gray eyes back to life. "Jon, Lord Stark, you're all right." Her gaze moved down his body, then she fully noticed the bevy of scars sported about his chest. Even the two that took his life, even though air filled his lungs, her breath got stuck in her throat. Those wounds were fatal and weren't going anywhere. The remainder of what happened, eyes moving further down, realizing he was completely naked, with a faint blush, respectfully averting her eyes. "Your cloak, Sir Barristan," she croaked out. The older knight removed it as fast as he could, his breathing uneven, unable to calm down, as someone draped a warm cloak around his shoulders, his gaze set on her, and everything changed. Instead of his chest rising and falling rapidly, it slowed significantly. He blinked over and over again, senses returning. But he didn't look away from Dany. His eyes were free of hate, of anger, of bitterness. They simply shone brightly, innocent of all the shit that plagued the world. Staring rather curiously at Daenerys, she was unable to speak as his hand gingerly moved, trembling to cup her cheek, thumb ghosting over her flesh. His skin met hers as it did in the cave. A shuddering breath fumbled from her mouth as she received him yet again. Her eyes closed, mind and body flooded with the semblance of heaven from their moment in the Dragonglass cave. All was right again. Then he began to try to speak, though it seemed difficult for him. Dany longed to hear him say her name, one more time. Longed to hear him say his piece, what he felt. Instead, her heart stopped. "Who are you?" Darkness was all there was. Ever since his last breath, a light snuffed out. His body had become formless, nothing to hold on to. For a while he floated through the void, wondering if that's all there would ever be. On the bright side, the pain was gone. The immeasurable pain he felt as the blade punctured his heart, that did linger with him. The only thing that did. His mind was empty, otherwise. Until it all changed, he could stand again. It was still dark, but there was ground before his feet. He stood in the middle of a damp forest, snowy, the whiteness fell off the leaves in the wind. The trees were massive, stretching far above his head. Before he knew it, and out of his control, his body began to move. Unable to stop even if he wanted to, just along for the ride, he strolled through the forest, snow falling all around him. Eventually he made it a clearing. In front of him an upwards hill. Slowly he made it up. As he crested the hill, a massive castle covered in snow lied across the way. A cloudless sky, not even the moon was visible. The castle had numerous torches along the walls, which provided meager light from a distance. There were many people running along the ramparts. Above the castle was a moving black cloud, the biggest murder of crows he'd ever seen. Essentially right before him was a big field. Distant grumbling and growling reached his ears. He could see what exactly, but there was a great force gathering in the field. It was far too dark to see. What was clear, 2 sets of blue dots, thousands of them, all over the field, far more than anyone could count. Then the spots began to move all together towards the castle, the growling louder, until it was all he heard. The ravens descended upon the people manning the walls as the blue dots drew near. Just as the scene began to melt away, light burst into eyes. Jon woke up sputtering into life on a table. Nothing made sense. He sat up, quickly, trying to breathe, but it seemed impossible. His body heat turned up to steaming. His chest caught fire, right over his heart. Fumbling, he tried to move. In a split second, his legs gave way and he crashed to the ground. Pain exploded in his limbs, in his chest, in his skull, as if everything hurt, everything both scoured by fire and submerged in the icy depths. He didn't know much of anything, where he was, or why he was there. Nothing made sense. When he tried to think, it just hurt. His mind raced. Trying to register what was going on. His body had been dead, essentially. But now he sprung back into life. His system was just trying to catch up, pump blood to the right places. Remember how to do things. Remember anything, actually? Quicker than he expected, his mind started to work properly. It just took some time, yet he still didn't know where he was. Though he did remember his name. Jon Stark. He was a bastard. But a man legitimized him. He left a castle against a giant wall of ice. Traveling all over, killing so much killing. A very older man, a balding man, with a scruffy beard, and many, many others. People didn't know. Carrying shields and banners of lions and flayed men. Something else. Blue eyes, cold, freezing. His ears rang as people burst into the room. A sudden light cast upon him. Unfamiliar, harsh. One he was desperate to flee into the seeming safety of the darkness. But a lone woman came to him. She was calling out to him. But the words didn't make sense. She yelled back at the others behind her. It was all a daze. Everything just seemed to calm as the woman touched him gently, her soft hands almost a relief from the heat and ice coursing jointly through his veins. She said something, words intelligible to him as he tried to lift his head. Eventually, he did. Each movement of his neck agonizing, and yet Jon persisted, needing to find the face of the comforting touch. Finally, he settled his eyes on the woman holding him. With something to focus on, his heart rate finally slowed. Breathing became much easier. She looked away from him. Someone placed a cloak over him, but he hadn't looked away from her. Once she returned her gaze to him, he tried to examine her face. She was definitely familiar, but he didn't know her name or who she was. For some reason, he felt compelled to touch her. Innately or instinctively, his hand moved toward her face. Truly, he didn't know why, but his quaking hand got close to her. His thumb brushed across her cheek. She seemed taken aback by this. Her own body shivered against his touch. The reaction looked pleasant, for notions unknown to him. Soon he felt unable to speak. He only had one question. It was immensely more difficult to say than he expected. It took a lot of energy that he didn't have an extensive supply. As the words left his lips, it all caved in again. "Who are you?" And suddenly all simply cut out. Darkness and heat enveloping him. Easy with him. "Where are the healers?" "Water. We need some water." "Your Grace, these prisoners are without chains." A withering glare sent Varys' gaze elsewhere. As quickly as Daenerys shut that down, her attention drew quickly back to Jon resting on the sheet, acting as a makeshift stretcher by her blood riders, carrying him towards the royal wing of the keep. No sooner than he had said the words that still felt like ice to her heart, than he had collapsed again. Breathing ragged, still breathing, she had to keep reminding herself. Even now, he continued to groan and occasionally thrash about. "Where's the damned maester?" she screamed at Barristan for the 5th time. "I don't know, Your Grace." On the side, Jon flung his arms, a pained gasp crying out into the hallway as he desperately clawed at imaginary enemies. "Hold down his hands." Davos barked out, in spite of him being the enemy's hand. His authoritative tone drew response as Barristan grabbed one arm, Cabrero both his legs, and Davos the other. Nevertheless, his thrashing continued, almost tossing the men to the floor. Dany reached to touch his forehead, feeling the once cold skin almost burning, slick with sweat and flushed crimson. "Please, Jon. We're almost there." Still groaning, the thrashing petered out, eyes fluttering open and closed as if he was fighting unconsciousness. "Jon?" "The cold blue," he mumbled. "Radi." Darkness, then light, in and out. Jon's eyes never stayed open for too long. Even if he wanted to stay awake, he couldn't. Vision fading to black as his eyes rolled behind his skull. Daenerys patted his cheek. "Jon? Jon?" A woman's screams faint in his ears. The northerner's eyes flew open in the middle of a river. The water beneath coming up to his knees and running red with the blood of thousands. His vision was hazy in an almost perfect fog. The sound of swords clashing, roaring around him, but only shadows in view. In a flash, one of the shadows burst into view, water kicked up as two massive forms battled each other. Jon instinctively reached for his sword, only to find the scabbard empty. Not that the brawlers cared, or that it would last long enough to matter, The larger one, horns sticking out of his helm like a demon, bellowed and swung his warhammer, smashing into the other man, his armor dark as night, but the heart shining like a glittering ruby. All seemed to disintegrate from the impact of the warhammer, flecks of shining red showering the air around the falling man. Jon staggered, crying out as he seemed to feel the same blow, a wave of pain and sorrow overwhelming him, both him and the man in the dark armor crashing into the water at the same time. Resonating above was a voice, loud yet hushed and mournful. "Lyanna." "All right, ready?" Davos barks, the guest bedchamber directly opposite the entrance to the Queen's suite, prepared quickly for Jon's recovery. 1, 2, 3, with a heave, Davos, Barristan, Kovaro, and Grey Worm lifted the dazed Jon onto the plus mattress. Waiting at the foot of the bed, Daenerys barely felt Missandei hold her shoulders. Even with the furs pulled up to his waist, she still had a view of the 2 gaping wounds upon his stomach and chest, as if they were about to bleed at any minute. "Gods," Missandei breathed beside her. "No one can survive that." It passed her lips without her even realizing it. "He didn't Dany bit her lip," arms around herself protectively. "Where's the damn maester?" Barristan grunted, wetting Jon's head with a towel as the Stark Lord began idly thrashing his limbs, mumbling in delirium. At that moment, one of the Blood Riders entered, returning with 2 of the Dothraki female healers instead of a maester. "They do, though." "I'll go translate," Missandei offered, leaving Dane's side to help the healers as they tended to Jon. She trembled slightly, watching him groan in some spasm of pain. "Please be all right. Please come back to me," Dany murmured, close to tears. "He struggles with death, with darkness." The Queen looked to her side to see Melisandre, regarding Jon with sad eyes. "It is up to his will to see him return." "Jon Stark is strong," Dany replied. "He's the strongest of us all." A mid-morning haze covered an unknown landscape, part bathed in snow, another part bare expanse of black rock, distributed unevenly, glowing as if each on fire, ripples dancing upon the surface. As if a Valyrian god, Jon's eyes were omniscient, watching the chaos play out before him like a bird watching a mummer's drama. Somewhere a dragon roared, its bat-like wings shrouding the landscape. Upon the ground raced a pack of wolves, each of a different color. One black as night, one red as fire, one gray as smoke, and one pure white as the driven snow. They raced away as fast as they could from the dragon, but behind them chased not the beast of Valyria, but what seemed like shadows, hot on the heels of the pack, slowly but surely catching up, ready to engulf the wolves. And above, on a distant hill, a stag watched the scene in silence. At long last, the Maester of Dragonstone showed up, chains dangling as he moved to the prone patient. "It took you long enough," Daenerys snarled. "Forgive me, your grace," he babbled. "What is his condition?" "He was dead, now he's not." Davos was anything if not blunt. The Maester furrowed his brows. "Impossible." "It's very possible, Master," Melisandre said, smirking slightly. "Just take care of him," Dany ordered. "I will do my best, your grace." Head pounding with a cavernous echo, he suddenly found himself in a massive throne room. High ceiling of ribbed vaults covered in intricate frescoes, a massive throne of swords perched at the end, and a line of dragon skulls mounted all along the walls, remnants of an undoubtedly bygone era. As he walked through the vaulted hall, figures stepped out from the shadowed columns on all sides of him, men and women all looking familiar, his skull throbbing as he tried to remember them all. "You are half the age that egg was," an old man said, face wrinkled and eyes glassed over with blindness. "Your own burden is a crueler one, I fear." This from a beautiful woman, her moonlit hair falling in silver curls about her shoulders. She looked sad, withdrawn, one without much happiness in her life. "You will have little joy of your command," said a man in the prime of his life. Hair long enough to fall under his ears and with a close-cropped beard. He dressed in northern leathers. "But I think you have the strength in you to do the things that must be done," completed a far younger man, dressed similarly but with hair a dark auburn and eyes a piercing blue, regarding Jon with fondness but also resolve. They all regarded him fondly, surrounding him from both sides. His head whipped around. "Who are you?" The pounding in his head grew worse. "Answer me." Not anger, but desperation, pain. And yet, a roaring wind drew his attention to the two standing at the base of the Iron Throne itself. Each draped in swirling snow, a blizzard beginning to overtake the throne room. One a wild beauty of the north, dark hair free to blow in the wind as she watched him in a dress of red and black. The other was almost the opposite, armored powerfully yet with a silver-white coloring and violet eyes, same as the woman from before that gave him an almost ethereal beauty. "Kill the boy, Jon Stark," the woman said, lovingly but firmly. Another pain, but this time in the heart, as if Jon was supposed to know this woman. Love this woman with all of his soul. "Who are you?" he begged. But only the man answered as cryptically as before, while the hall began to fill with howling snow and ice. "Winter is almost upon us. Kill the boy and let the man be born." "Who are you?" All faded to white as Jon began sobbing before the two figures. "And who are you?" bellowed the Lord of Winterfell, almost lurching out of bed, Dane jumping out of her skin as she watched Jon try and grab onto people. Not even there. His frantic beseeching knocked aside the healers, and only stopped by 3 burly Dothraki wrestling him to the bed. "He's a strong one, Khaleesi," one ground out. "You sure he was dead?" another remarked. Dany answered not, looking upon him with immense worry. His gray eyes were glassy, yet wide with fright. With desperation, body covered in sweat, he suddenly seemed to go limp. "Who are you? Don't leave me." Jon murmured before his body started shaking violently, eyes rolling into his skull as he thrashed about. She gasped in terror. "What is this? What's happening to him?" The Maester didn't panic, but he wasn't calm either. "The spasms, your grace. Usually they indicate brain or spine damage. Bring me milk of the poppy now," he yelled at his acolyte, attending to Jon even as Dany clasped her hands over her mouth. "He's strong," reassured Davos. "The Onion Knight is right," Tyrion added. "He'll survive," Missandei said as Jon continued to spasm violently, taking all of the Dothraki to hold him down. "The Lord of Light isn't done with him yet." Melisandre was the surest of them all. And yet none of it would comfort Dundee as the maester poured the milk of the poppy down Jon's gullet. Body stilling and breaths evening out in slumber, nothing would comfort Dundee until her beloved would wake. A packed city square, the sun loomed heavy. He walked over a cobbled street. Turning a corner, he was met with heat. Pure hot heat. He wasn't close yet. He felt the flames lick his cheeks. In the middle of the city, a green inferno raged. There was a crowd standing far too close to it, and they cheered all the while. The flames reached high to the sky and wide as a galleon. For some reason, he was pulled towards the madness. His feet carried him without his consent. As he neared, the crowd stopped jeering. Suddenly, they all turned to him. Their cold expressions regarded him, the crackling of the fire filling his ears, the only noise around. All the people parted for him to pass. He strolled through the way made for him. The path led directly to the fire. Wanting nothing else than to run as far away as possible, instead he moved closer. The heat got so intense, it felt to be peeling his skin off. Of course, his body carried him closer and closer. So close that eventually he walked into the flames. If he could have screamed, he would have. Anything to stop the madness. He wanted to at least close his eyes, but he couldn't do that either. Once he entered the flames, the heat multiplied tenfold. His skin melted off. If he could have reached for his hair, there would have been none there. Any clothes he wore became dust, falling off his shoulders. He fell to his knees as the heat roasted him down to the bone, though he started to crawl, moving towards the center of the fire. He reached the middle to find a pyre with a long stake there, sitting naked. That was the last thing he saw before the flames enveloped him entirely. Jon's eyes flew open, only for a murmured wince to sputter from his lips as the sunlight hit them, squirming around on the bed, only for his entire body to hurt. "Jon!" The side of the bed dipped, and it took several tries before he finally opened his eyes, finding the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. Her silver hair falling free over her shoulders as 2 wide violet eyes looked upon him expectantly. Jon's mouth opened, feeling that he knew her name, only for it to die in his mind. Shame filling him. "Good to see you wake. You had us worried." Jon sat up in the bed. "I'm sorry," he attempted to try and rise off the bed, but grimaced, body aching. Moving quickly to his side, Daenerys eased him back against the pillows. Rest, please. Gods, he looked so different from the strong warrior she knew. Don't be. It's not your fault, Dany told him. Do you remember me? I know I should, but my mind feels scattered. You're familiar for sure. Dany didn't know what to do other than introduce herself, which felt like a strange idea, because normally Miss Aratier takes care of that. She laid her hand on her chest. My name is Daenerys Targaryen. I'm supposed to be the rightful ruler of Westeros. Yeah, Targaryen. I can see that. Such pretty eyes. There was the faintest of reddening on her cheeks. Jon found he liked it. You must be the last one, right? That's correct. I am the last Targaryen. I'm sorry. I don't know much of anything right now, though I know I should. I'm trying. It's like Jon began trying to find the words. He gestured towards his heads. I feel all jumbled up. I feel like there's things I should know, things I should remember, but I don't. It will come back, your memory, she said, trying to sound reassuring. Though she had no idea if his mind would return to normal. Physically, he was fine. His body may be a bit worn out, but that's to be expected. There was no one to ask about it. The maester could only do so much for him. Jon didn't appear convinced. I was dead, so there's no assurances that it will. I shouldn't even be here. A hand found to cover his, bringing warmth to the icy skin. You do. There was the deepest conviction in her violet eyes. If I know anything about you and your actions, Dean continued, though she admitted it took far too long for her to come to this conclusion. You deserve to be here more than anyone else I know. She smiled when he let out a tiny chuckle. Well, always good for someone with dragons to think highly of me, Jon quipped. She giggled a bit, but turned serious after. We brought you back because it was the right thing to do. Her voice turned to a whisper. I had failed you. There was a way to right the wrong. So I took it. Closing his eyes, Jon angled his head away, covering his forehead with his hand. I think I understand. Do you wish I hadn't? Hells no, Jon smirked. Being here is far better than I was. Where were you? I'm not too sure, but it was horrible. I don't want to go back. Did you see something? Yes, mostly blackness, but there were some... He shook his head. But if it's all right, I don't want to speak about it. I'm afraid of what might happen if I do. It hurts just to think about it. All right, Dany wouldn't push. Do you remember your death? Her words almost were like a gentle nudge that pushed him into the sunlight. A tiny part of Jon's body awash with calm as a weight was lifted off it, unlocking a memory so vivid it nearly made him see stars, playing out before him. I do! He blindly reached for the pitcher of water, only for Dane to hand it to him. Jon drank straight from it, draining it dry before coughing. The cold liquid felt perfect against his throat, grounding him. He stabbed me in the back, then took on the name was on his tongue of who had been with him, but he just couldn't put his finger on it. He turned back to me, stabbing me in the stomach and the heart. That face would never leave him. The sellsword, Dario Naris, she almost spat his name out. Jon was grateful for the recognition. I saw things before, things of my life, I think. His eyes widened, looking at her. Daenerys? The way he said her name, there was a familiarity there, one that made her heart hitch. What is it? One of the memories, we were in a cave. It was fuzzy, but Jon remembered bits and pieces. Why would I remember that? It was as if Daddy felt the warmth spread through her. The cave? Her heart beat fast, trying not to smile widely as she wished. What else do you remember about it? Not much, he nodded. I wish I could remember more of what could that memory mean to me. I remember bits and pieces of things. Knowing I feel something, he closed his eyes, rubbing his temples. Can you tell me, Daenerys? Vagrid so wanted to tell him the truth of their growing connection, of how she felt about him, about the cave and their near kiss, or the night of his death and the touches they shared. But she couldn't. It isn't my story to tell, Jon Stark. Your true emotions have to come back naturally. Jon hated not being able to make sense of any of this. Part of him wishing he had just died. But when he looked at her, I feel calm with you here, taking away some of the pain, clearing my thoughts. I'm glad I can at least provide you some comfort. I wasn't great at giving you protection as her Her words wandered off into a whisper that Jon didn't hear. Thankfully, they were interrupted. One of her Unsullied came in and spoke directly to her. Apparently, Jon's friend Sam wanted to see him. Dany rose quickly, acting needing some fresh air. Jon, there's someone here to see you. A friend. One of your friends. Do I know him? It's like you said, you should, she smiled, moving towards the door. Where are you going? I'll leave you to it. She wished to grant him a kiss, at least on the forehead, but would not confuse him more. If he reciprocates, he'll find you regardless. It was shocking that such romantic notions still existed for her, a good feeling, but shocking nonetheless. Daenerys leaving left the room colder than it had been. At least it appeared so for Jon. He wrapped the furs tighter round himself as a portly man shuffled in, face changing from tense to happy. Jon, thank the gods you're alive. He peered at the man, clad in the outfit of a maester's acolyte. The tone indicated that they were likely close, but he couldn't place him. Luckily, Sam understood. You don't remember me. It's all right, given what happened. He walked over. I'm Sam. Samuel Tarly. We were our friends. I could tell, Jon replied. But how do I know you? We served together at Castle Black. We were brothers. It just so happened we arrived there around the same time. You defended me against some swineherds. Do you remember that? No, I'm sorry, but I remember being at Castle Black. So I suppose I could have known you. Well, we served there together for many years. I sort of clung to you because you were a good fighter, and many of the other men respected you. So, when I stood next to you, they didn't pick on me as much, Sam confessed. Never having told Jon that before he died. Jon smirked. Oh, I get it. That's smart. All right, let's check your wounds. Sam pulled the furs to his waist and slowly peeled off the bandages wrapped around his chest and stomach. The wounds are open but healed. No blood or pus. That's good for a man once dead. Jon snorted. I'm good, apart from the pain and memory loss. Sam sighed. Well, what do you remember? Not much. Humor me. Jon didn't speak up at first. Flashes mostly. These terrible dreams. Things I saw when I was dead. That won't go away. Jon explained. I do remember a few things, clearly. My name, Jon. I was a bastard, but someone legitimized me. Then, I traveled. Killing. I did a lot of killing. A couple of old men. Then somehow I ended up dead in this castle. Do you remember anything from your childhood? Not much. Some life was hard. Being a bastard, I wasn't treated the best. I had 4 siblings, though 1 or 2 of them didn't like me or weren't allowed near me. 4? I thought you had 5? Well, I'm not exactly sure if that's what you're saying. Jon, you have 5 siblings, Sam said plainly. Do you remember their names? No, Jon answered. I don't remember anyone's name, to be fair. Sam sighed. I'd hope you'd remember their names, Jon. This isn't good. I don't, Jon shrugged. Truly, he didn't. He scanned his mind, searching for answers that weren't there, or at least buried deep where he couldn't see. Do you remember what they look like? He looked relieved. Yes, a bit. One was short, a girl, dark hair, and brown eyes. A taller girl with bright red hair, Jon said, brow furrowed. A small child, fuzzy brown hair. Then lastly, another boy with brown hair, a little shorter than the red-headed girl. Description is accurate, at least. So there's that, but Jon, you have another brother. I have no recollection of another brother, Jon shook his head. I never met him myself. But it's true. Listen, I'm gonna tell you their names. I want you to tell me if that jump-starts your memory. Okay? Sam said. At Jon's nod, he began, Arya, Sansa, Rickon, Bran, and Robb. There might be something there, Jon said, pulling a face. Yak. Yeah. I gave her something. A sword, I think. It was a fragment. A small girl leaping into his arms, gaze filled with sisterly love. She's got dark hair and brown eyes. Sansa is the tall one. Red hair. I can't tell the difference between Rickon and Bran. Jon looked down, pained. I have no idea who Robb is. Placing a hand on Jon's shoulder, Sam gave a small smile. You died, Jon. For over a day. Even the witch that brought you back doesn't understand the magic used. It's natural you'll have struggles you'll need to overcome. There was a silence before Jon chuckled mercilessly. One thing I can remember about myself, that my life was nothing but a struggle. Hard times build hard men. That's what my father always said to me, he frowned. He also implied I'd die in a hunting accident if I didn't join the watch. So what do I know? Jon arched an eyebrow. Your father sounds like a cunt. Sam thought for a moment. Aye, he is a cunt. For once, Jon managed a genuine laugh. Sam joined him in the bright moment with his own chuckle. Then his expression darkened a bit. Jon, do you know why you are here? Much like everything else, no, I don't know anything about it. Though I've become rather curious about how I got here. Would you like to know? He blinked. Well, yes. I'm just going to assume you remember nothing from your life in the last year. Sam began with a sigh. You left Castle Black with Stannis Baratheon. He legitimized you in exchange for your help with the wildlings. Jon's eyes widened. You bent the knee and pledged to fight by his side. Eventually, you became one of his most trusted advisors. But before that, the two of you went to Hardhome. There you were attacked by them, but managed to rescue a significant amount of the wildlings. Attacked by who? Jon, the others, the White Walkers. Army of the Dead. White Walkers, blue eyes. Jon's voice lowered but a whisper. His heart picked up its pace. Another blackout lingered over him, but he fought it off. Blue eyes. Yes, Jon? Do you remember now? A bit. Keep going. You returned with Stannis and the wildlings to the mainland. From Eastwatch, the pack of you went directly to Winterfell to retake it. After a hard battle, you killed the Boltons and took your home back. You rescued Sansa. Boltons? Was one of them a balding man with a bushy gray beard? Perhaps Rose Bolton, Sam answered with a slight shrug. I may have cut his head off. A faint feeling came to him at the thought, one of triumph. Good, it seems like some of this is coming back to you. Not entirely, it's like tiny chunks are still left out. I still don't know how I died in this damned castle. I'm getting to it, said Sam. After taking Winterfell, you honored your pledge to Stannis and marched south with him. You left Sansa and Rickon at Winterfell. From here, all I know is that you and Stannis engaged with the Lannisters and won, possibly a trip to Harrenhal. But around that time, Sam stopped, peeking behind him, as if to see if there was someone listening in. Daenerys Targaryen was near to landing in Westeros. With her massive foreign army and 3 full-grown dragons, the country was terrified. An image of a great giant beast flying through the air. Spitting fire on scores of men flashes through Jon's mind. Ah, we met in battle. Yes, you did, Sam told him. You lost. A great many Northmen were lost. Numerous of your men bent the knee. Brendan the Blackfish refused, and met the fire of Daenerys' dragon. She considered burning you as well. Thinking about it, of the wildlings and of Jon nearly dying, he couldn't help but feel bitter and angry. Seeing as you wouldn't bend the knee, but instead, she took you captive. That's how you ended up here. I see, Jon frowned, looking away. That's how I ended up here, but then he looked back to Sam. But how did I get stabbed in the back by a low-life sellsword? I'm sorry, Jon. I don't know. I wasn't there, Sam said, pursing his lips. They haven't told me much, but it must have been a trick or something. The generator wouldn't have gone down easily. Well, he got me good, I guess. Perhaps Daenerys made him do it. Looking at Sam, peering at him, Jon figured it was plausible, but no, I don't think so. Jon, he held up a hand. I may not remember a damn thing, but I can tell when someone is genuine or not. Being a bastard, you have to know who secretly hates you for your birth and who doesn't behind the masks. A sigh. Her anger at that damn sellsword was real, her. The look in Daenerys' eyes, it wasn't hard to see she felt something for him. She had brought him back, after all, when she certainly didn't need to. From what Sam told him, they met on the battlefield. He had been her enemy. Still, she gave him a sense of calmness that nothing else could. She was glad I was alive, that I can tell. Opening his mouth to argue, it seemed as if Sam realized it was pointless. I'll fetch you some food for later. Why don't you rest? I suppose I'll do that. Leaning back, Jon found himself falling asleep as his head hit the pillow. 15 staves pounded into the ground. 15 stakes by which a prisoner was tied to. 15 pyres constructed by the bannermen of Storm's End, most long converted to the fiery faith of their king. 15 screams out of the throats of Lannister soldiers and raiders put to the torch, sounds growing faint and thrashing growing weaker as they slowly succumbed to the fires. all while the Stag King watched unmovingly, face expressionless but eyes dancing while watching from the balcony overlooking the inner courtyard of his keep. "May the Lord bless his chosen one," proclaimed the Master-at-Arms of Storm's End, an early and zealous convert standing in for Melisandre in her absence. "May these sacrifices of the unbelievers bring his flame upon us." "The night is dark and full of terrors," boomed the household guard, gathered around the pyres. The Master-at-Arms concluded the prayer. "Lord, cast your light upon us." Sighing deeply, Stannis didn't feel the fire. He barely felt a spark in his morose mood, leg throbbing as he turned to walk into the solar behind. "I'll need another dressing." It killed him, knowing that only with Davos and the Red Woman near would he feel secure and confident. "I am the king." And yet, his council was still well staffed. "That will send Cersei a message, your grace," Petyr Baelish offered, a smile upon his face. "It's a start," Stannis replied, taking a well-desired seat. "If I may, rituals don't win wars, battles do." Randyll Tarly didn't hide his discomfort, but he was loyal to a fault, likely desirous of a betrothal between his son and the crown princess, Stannis figured. "Cersei is clearly withdrawing all her forces to the capital itself. We've secured the Windwater while Roseby and Stokeworth capitulated to Daenerys Targaryen." Stannis' scowl deepened. "Dragon bitch," he muttered. "If I don't get the Iron Throne before her, I'll never get it." That damned chair, so close to him last time, he would not let it slip away. "Cersei dies next. That is my order. We already have all but a few thousand of the Golden Company landed. The elephants were truly magnificent. Your grace, if I may, I suggest a parley." A pair of eyes rose at Littlefinger. "What use does a damn parley have?" Bagsley. The stag scoffed. "I outnumber them 10 to 1. They can get all the supplies they want from the fucking Kraken, but it doesn't matter if I break the damned gates down and take the city. I believe Cersei will surrender." "That's bloody madness. There's no chance that bitch would bend the knee before me. She'd rather die." "Well, in normal circumstances, you'd be right. When you tried to take city all those years ago, she nearly shoved poison down her and her son's throats. That was preferable to being captured by you." "What's your point?" Randyll Tarly spoke up. "Get on with it." "Cersei is pregnant." Many whispers among those present filled the air. Stannis leaned back. "Impossible." "Your grace, it's very possible. She's had her brother with her for some time," Petyr explained. Also, having seen her for himself, the rumors he'd heard were confirmed. He still had contacts inside the Red Keep, regardless. Stannis scratched through his beard, lingering on the thought. "You believe this may sway her to surrender?" "I do." "What does it matter? A parley is pointless." "Your grace, we can attack the city, and it will fall within the day." Randyll argued, gesturing at the map. His fist slammed down into the area of the front gates. "They can't hold us back for so long. If they're foolish enough to meet us in open conflict, the battle would be over long before it even started." "Perhaps that's true. But think of your image, your grace. If the city is sacked, thousands will die. The last Baratheon that sacked King's Landing, well, his rule was ended by a boar." Stannis rolled his eyes. Robert was a fool. "Yes, he was. I know firsthand. That's why you should be different." Stag King's eyes flickered to the fire in the hearth, the fading blue irises glinting in a rich orange-red. "You're dismissed," he said with a wave of his hand. As the two lords left, a guard entered after them. "Your grace, the Princess Shireen requests to see you." Normally he'd delight to spend any amount of time with his daughter, but with the weight of everything upon him, tell her I'll see her on the morrow. The guard bowed and left, leaving the king alone to brood and ponder. 2 weeks later, "How large an army is this?" "Your grace, Baelor Hightower's forces comprise most of the Southern Reach lords and remnants of the Faith militant that were adrift after the loss of the High Septon in the Sept of Baelor. Estimates range from 15 to 30,000, too soon to say, since Old Town is a city 2/3 the size of King's Landing. Many bodies to put into armor." Daenerys frowned, knowing this was bad. "And how many do the Dornish have?" Wishing he could give her good news, Barristan wasn't the type to gloss over the bad. "At most, 12,000. The Ironborn attacks and the slaughter of their lords caused many desertions, according to Aryain Martell." "Just fucking perfect," Daenerys mumbled under her breath. "I take it Stannis has still gathered most of his forces in the Stormlands." "Aye, your grace," replied Varys, on her flank opposite Barristan, both advisors following her as they walked through the spacious corridors of Dragonstone. Watched by the murals and carvings of dragon lords and Valyrian gods, their eyes almost following Daenerys as if passing judgment. The Golden Company is mostly docked at Storm's End, and his host has almost swelled to 70,000. That was even larger than her own armies. Daenerys fought a headache. Why does he divide his forces? The Reach houses that fought with the Tyrells at Highgarden are not loyal. Means he can waste them against Dorne rather than risk them betraying him. Smart. Thank you, Varys. You may go. The eunuch bowed and made to leave. Military strategy wasn't his skill. Information was, Barristan, how long can the Dornish last? He furrowed his brows. As an army, perhaps a moon longer if they can keep from getting crushed in the field. As bushwhackers, you know how Ekond and Daeron fared. She did know, but also realized that Dorne was devastated because of it. Something she couldn't allow for a critical Westerosi ally. The only ally she had left on the continent, aside from Jon Stark, even he wasn't technically. Send a raven to Arianne. Inform her she is to avoid battle, but do whatever it takes to slow Lord Hightower down. But no withdrawing to the hills. They're to stay as a fighting unit. A man less knowledgeable on how a Targaryen thought may have asserted her plan was a dangerous gamble, but Barristan could tell when the dragon would wake. When the dragon was planning to unleash fire and blood, "It will be done, your grace." "You are a good hand, Sir Barristan. You haven't directed me down the wrong path since the issue with the Harpy prisoner. I trust you've learned your lesson from that." She certainly had. Daenerys wanted to know if Barristan did. He sighed. "Aye, I have. We are at war. We must fight as if our backs are to the walls." Good. Looking down the hall, there was her destination. "You are dismissed. We'll reconvene the small council before dinner." He bowed, leaving her to her will. Pinching the bridge of her nose, Dainty headed to the door, looking forward to easing her headache with the one person who could always put a smile on her face. Knocking, a faint "come in" warbled through the door. Smiling softly at the soft northern brogue, she turned the knob and walked in, only to find the reason the call was faint. Jon Stark was out of bed. Not usually where she found him. The room was empty, but the large doors that led to a central, private courtyard with a view of the cliffs, each of the royal chambers emptied out into it, and Dany often used it to escape the chaos of the world, to calm herself as she did at the balcony of the Great Pyramid. Sometimes Drogon or Viserion would land atop the keep to keep her company. Perhaps Jon sought something similar. Finding Samwell Tarly first, the acolyte looked her over with a half-bitter, half-curious look, as if he hadn't found a decision about whether to blame her about Jon's death. Perhaps it had something to do with Jon being alive and, well, active. The handsome Northman was in the center of the courtyard, a sheen of sweat on his brow as he practiced swordplay. He stood straight, feet planted on the stone, hacking away at a training dummy with a flurry of attacks. Moves simple yet fluid and skilled, spinning and twirling the practice blade. It was as if he had never been grievously wounded and killed. And yet, Dany never had even a moment's ignorance of. She felt stunned to see him without a shirt. His upper body sported more scars than she could ever count. There was probably a story behind every single one. The three most recent, the 3 killing blows, still looked fresh. His chest was rather muscular, toned, and solid. Likely spending years keeping his body in top shape. His death didn't even look to have an effect on him. The sight gave her own body a reaction she didn't expect. Unable to look away, he looked magnificent. Seemed that her eyes on him were noticed. Panting, he turned around, exposing the scars over his chest and stomach, unable not to notice. "Your Grace," he bowed shallowly. Daenerys took a deep breath, composing herself. "Lord Stark," she eyed the blade. "I see you haven't lost your skill." "Oh, this?" He waved the training sword. "A bit clunky, too unwieldy. I suppose that means I wielded something lighter." "Same sword, but Valyrian steel." "Wolf pommel?" He smiled when Dainty nodded. "I remember that, having such a blade in battle. Glad I wasn't mad." At that moment, Sam spoke up. "Longclaw. That's the sword's name." His bitter eyes fell on Dany. "She took it from you when—" The Queen cut him off before he could finish. "You're dismissed, Samwell." His eyes widened, not expected to be ordered out so quickly. But someone needs to watch in case his wounds give out or he doubles over in pain. I am perfectly capable of that, she narrowed her gaze at him. Lord Stark and I need a moment alone to speak, so leave. The acolyte merely nodded gruffly and waddled out, leaving the two of them alone. Sorry about that, she offered, but Jon only watched her oddly, eyes glassy, as if trying to remember something, so she preempted him. Why do you fight bare-chested